Good morning to all of you. Welcome to the 2023 Ivy League Football Media Day. I'm Jack Ford, delighted to be your host here, former Yale football player. I'm also delighted to be part of the ESPN broadcast team as the color analyst for the package. This year, it will be 6 games, that has been in the past. ESPN, I should say, and I've been fortunate to be part of it since the beginning. They've just done a marvelous job in showcasing the Ivy League, and they've been thrilled with the product that we have presented to them. So I'm delighted to be with you again this morning to host this conversation. A couple of notes before we get started, reminders for you. First of all, the entire program is going to be recorded and it'll be published on the league's YouTube channel. So you can go to that at the conclusion of the event. Also, if you'd like a recording sent to you directly, you should contact JJ Klein, who's the league office's football communications contact. Get him at jj@ivyleague.com, jj@ivyleague.com. Also want to mention, as I said in the very beginning, Ivy League is going to have a significant presence on ESPN, 6 games on the linear network. As you know, everything else, every other game available on ESPN Plus for you. I can tell you, having done this, and I just mentioned this a moment ago, but the ESPN has just been delighted with the quality of the football that this league has presented year in and year out. And I think if you look at the schedule this year, I think probably the best schedule we've had. So looking forward to doing that with them. The ESPN folks, I just spoke with them the other day, are just very excited once again of being partners with the Ivy League. Also should mention, and we've talked about this on the air often, the significant presence that the league has in the National Football Foundation. As of just a few days ago, I believe we had 21 Ivy League players who were in NFL camps. Some interesting sidelights to all this that we always mention on the air, and that is how many Ivy League players have been involved with championships, NFL championships. Lombardi hoisting the Lombardi trophy just last year. You saw, if you were watching, you saw Justin Watson, former great player from the University of Pennsylvania, hoisting the trophy with Kansas City Chiefs, marking the 5th straight year that the Ivy League has had one of our players on the World Championship team. So we're looking forward once again to this. Also want to mention that the Ivy League is pleased to partner with the National Football Foundation with the presentation of the Players of the Year, Offensive and Defensive Players of the Year. The Asa S. Bushnell Cup presentation takes place at the New York Athletic Club. It's just a wonderful event. I've been delighted to be part of it as the vice chair of the National Football Foundation, and I can tell you that the entire foundation truly embraces the Ivy League and this event because they recognize its history and traditions and how much we have meant the cradle of American football. So keep an eye on that. That'll be on the 13th of December. I just want to remind you that there will be an opportunity. Here's what our format is going to be. In just a moment, we're going to hear from Robin Harris, our executive director. Then we will kick into conversations with the head coach and 2 players from each of our 8 teams. We're going to go in reverse order this year. So we'll start with Yale and work our way down to Brown. I'll pose some questions, and then there'll be an opportunity for all of you out there to pose some questions too. So use your raised hand function, if you will, and then you'll be prompted to jump in and to ask your question also. So that's what we're going to be doing during the course of our morning today. And once again, we're delighted to have all of you joining us. It should be an interesting and engaging conversation with our players and our coaches. As we start off, I want to welcome our executive director, Robin Harris, in her 15th year leading the conference now. And I'm proud to call her a friend, and I've been able to witness the magnificent achievements that she has brought to this league. A number of things, a couple of things I can mention. The work that the league has done in conjunction with the Big Ten on concussion research, the groundbreaking deal that we've talked about with ESPN, not just football, but across the board for all of our marvelous Ivy League sports. Robin, also a respected leader in the college sports landscape. Among other things, recently served appointments the NCAA Constitution Committee, the NCAA Transformation Committee, which was a significant function going on there in Indianapolis, and also currently the chair of the Board of Trustees of the Women's Sports Foundation. We're delighted to have her as our leader here. Robin, good morning and welcome to you.
Well, thank you, Jack. Good morning to you, and welcome to everyone watching Ivy League Football Media Day. I am incredibly excited for the upcoming 2023 Ivy League football season. And I really appreciate to the media members joining us today, your passion, your professionalism for telling the story of our Ivy League student athletes who are so special in so many ways. We really appreciate your time and your attention. I would like to start off today by acknowledging that our sidelines this year will have an immeasurable void without Buddy Tevens and Al Bagnoli. Between Buddy and Al, I want to share some statistics. They have 72 combined seasons as head coaches, 14 Ivy League championships, 425 total wins. But most importantly, they have each impacted countless of lives throughout their leadership and their mentoring on and off the field of so many Ivy League football student athletes. You know, actually, as I think about this, as remarkable as those numbers are, it is impossible to fully encapsulate what Al and Buddy mean to this league. So to Al, on behalf of the Ivy League, I know we can all say that we are excited to continue working with you in your new role with Columbia. And Buddy, we are all with you as you continue your recovery, and I know that you'll be watching the games this season. We are also fortunate to have two individuals at Dartmouth and Columbia, Sammy McCorkle and Mark Fabish, who both have extensive experience within the Ivy League and are well positioned to lead their teams this season. So today marks the unofficial kickoff of another season of Ivy League football, and we look forward to once again showcasing the outstanding quality of Ivy League football and our model of sustained success. And as Jack alluded to, our success continues to transcend into the NFL. When Justin Watson hoisted the Lombardi Trophy last year, it was the 15th time an Ivy alum has won the Super Bowl since 2008. And Harvard alum Kyle Juszczyk was named to his 7th consecutive Pro Bowl. And Yale alum Foye Oluokun led the NFL in tackles for the 2nd year in a row. These on-the-field achievements are just a few examples of how we excel on the field in the NFL, and we are also leaders in many front offices as well. So during this time, when there is so much uncertainty in college athletics, with realignment and many questioning the path college football and college sports will take, I invite you to tune into ESPN each weekend and take notice of a conference that is rooted in collegiate stability and principle with incredibly talented student athletes on and off the field. Thank you to everyone for your support of Ivy League football. I hope you enjoyed today's programs, time with our coaches, our student athletes, and of course, the entire 2023 Ivy League football season. Thank you, Jack, for being with us today. I'll pass the program back to you.
Robin, thank you so much. And again, it's always a pleasure to have a chance to chat with you and to get your perspectives on everything. And just when I look at that, it's the 15th season. Time does indeed go by quickly. But Robin, wonderful job as always. And thank you so much for helping us launch this media day today. So, as I mentioned, we are going to now jump from each of the teams, starting with Yale. We'll finish with Brown alphabetically. We'll have about 20 minutes or so for each conversation. And again, I'll start off with some questions to the coach of the players, and then you media folks out there, make sure you use that raise hand function and we'll get you into the conversation. So I'm now delighted to welcome from Yale University, head coach Tony Reno. And also, along with head coach Reno today, he's got two of his players. Last year's Ivy League Offensive Player of the Year quarterback Nolan Grooms. And also we'll be talking with the captain of this, the 150th Yale University football team, first team All-Ivy Wande Owens. So welcome to all three of you. Delight to have a chance to see you. Coach Reno, I'm going to start with you if I can. I'm going to ask you the same question I'm going to ask each of the other head coaches and ask you to give something akin to a State of the Union address, if you would. So the question to you is just give us a sense here about this season, how you see it, strengths of this team, things that you think the team's going to need to get better at, and what the expectations are for you this year.
Sure. Well, Jack, it's always great to be with you, and thank you for everyone in the Ivy League for putting on another great day to really showcase our student athletes in our 8 great institutions. Before I start, I just want to wish Al Bagnoli well in his retirement. Al's was a great mentor to all of us and a legendary coach in this league, and along with that, want to wish Buddy Teevens and his family well, and hope for him to have a speedy recovery. As you mentioned, Yale, we've been very fortunate here. We've got an amazing community. It starts really with our president, Peter Salve, and works down through his administration and our admissions office. Really so supportive of our student athletes and the experience that they have here at Yale as student athletes. We couldn't ask for better people to be leading us. Our athletic director, Vicki Chellin, and our executive deputy director of athletics, Anne-Marie Guglieri, since they've walked on campus, their support has been incredible. And what they've done for us as a football family and for our players on a day-to-day basis is nothing short of extraordinary. So I'm really fortunate to be part of this amazing community here at Yale. And I don't think a lot of times we really, as college football programs and as coaches, really thank those who really help us get where we need to be. We've got an amazing group of alums. I spend each spring, as most coaches do, out on the road, seeing these men and getting a chance to share their experiences. And we're very fortunate here to have such a great supporting group of alumni who really want to help really further our football family, but also sharing the experiences of our student athletes. And, we mentioned earlier, I know Robin brought up some of the guys in the NFL, and we've got 3 in the NFL, and we've got the leading tackle in the NFL last 2 seasons in Foye Oluokun. We've got a rookie, Rodney Thomas, who had an extraordinary season last year for the Colts, and Dieter Eisland, who's playing for the Chicago Bears. And, those 3 guys, along with countless others that have left here in the last 10 years to join this strong group of alumni. I can't tell you how proud I am of them. I'm really proud of our team's impact off the field. We've really had a group of guys who've really said, hey, we want to be better for those around us and better for our community. We've partnered with A Long Talk and also with Set the Expectation, along with working with Andy Talley's group and the Be the Match Drive, and really trying to help in the community be better for each other, but being better for those around us, and really truly trying to develop the future leaders of the world here at Yale. And as you mentioned, really, really proud to be with these 2 guys, our captain, Wande Owens, and our quarterback, Nolan Grooms, who really exemplify what it means to be a truly Yale football player with their actions on and off the field. 2 fifth-year seniors who took their time off from Yale, as many others in this league have, to come back and play with their teammates and stay here and do that. For me, it just speaks volumes of the culture they've created here at Yale. And again, I'm a small part of it, but really proud to be with these 2 guys and the rest of their classmates in Team 150 this year. Recruiting's gone great. We've had a great year of recruiting. We're excited about this freshman class coming on, but even more so about the guys who've really seen what's happened here at Yale in the last 150 years and want to be a part of it, be part of this unique tradition we have here at Yale. And I'm very honored to be a head coach of a team that's the 7th winningest team in Division I college football history. When you talk about that, I think when you put it in perspective, of all the great teams in college football, we're very fortunate here to be on this line of teams and coaches that are really part of helping steward this along and embrace success Yale's had in history and hopefully build on it each year. Team 150 has been incredible since they came back. We came back to campus right after Thanksgiving and really put last year behind us and said, hey, how do we make this better for each other? One of the unique things about us is we number our teams, and Team 150 is different than Team 151 or different than Team 145. We're our own identity, and we're going to continue to build that each day this offseason. And now as we progress into the preseason in a few days here, and who we're going to be is really dependent upon the work we've put in and the work we will continue to put in. And I think our guys understand that. They understand that each day is equally as important, and we're only going to be as good as our preparation, which will influence our performance. So excited about what the guys have done. We've got a great group of sports performance coaches and sports medicine staff that have done, really nothing short of an extraordinary job with our guys since day one. And come back in healthy and come back in stronger and faster and, and better for each other as we go along. So really the story of our team and the strength of our team is our players and the relationships they have with each other. And, the relationships will be directly an example of what we're going to do this season. So as our guys understand that we'll have great moments and we'll have moments of adversity, and the bonds that they've built all off season and will continue to build in this preseason will directly affect the outcomes of our games this fall.
Let me ask you one more question, and I want to jump in with Nolan and Wande. So 3 of the last 5 seasons, Yale has either won outright last season or shared the Ivy titles. It's an extraordinary record. This season, you come in as the preseason favorite, and a pretty substantial margin. Previous seasons, you were the hunter. Now you're going to be the hunted. How do you approach that with your team? The fact that everybody is saying, this is the team this year. How do you deal with that with your players?
I like 2 things, Jack. I mean, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, when you've had the success that Yale's had in its history, the 7th winningest team in Yale in NCAA Division I football history, I think that's part of wearing the Y. The other part for us is like we truly feel like we play a game against ourselves each week. And we focus on ourselves. We focus on the day-to-day. We focus on our processes. And whoever we play each week is an opponent, and we respect everyone. And we've got some exceptional opponents in this league, but we really truly feel that the success of our team is directly in our locker room. And for us, everything points to us and our ability to be the best versions of ourselves each day.
Nolan, let me bring you in the conversation if I can here. And as Coach Reno mentioned, both you and Wande, 5th-year seniors, you each, because of the way the Ivy League works, you each had to take time off to be able to come back and play again. And my question to you is about that, the decision to come back and play again. You've experienced team success, Ivy title last year, individual success in terms of the offensive player of the year last year. So why then decide, all right, I want to come back for one more year here?
Yeah. So, for me, it was kind of an easy decision. Right when the season got announced that we were canceling, the Ivy League was canceling the football season, I took that fall semester off. So I took it off, right when that announcement came out. And for me, it was really just all about the relationships. I had a good relationship with Coach Reno and Coach Cahill, obviously at the time. And, and the guys in my class, I came in early as a incoming freshman and we all stayed together in 1 inch away, like here on campus. And so, the relationships established that summer sort of, dictated and it's all throughout our class. Almost every single member of our class is back this year. And, we want to be elite as a class, and we want to be remembered as, Team 150 senior class that, we always talk about chasing elite here,
Talk a little bit about the offense. A lot of players coming back, lost some significant losses, but a lot of players coming back. How do you see the offense this season in some ways compared to how it was last year?
Yeah. So we're graduating 2 starters off the offensive line, and one in Nick Gargiulo, our senior captain. He played center for us, and then we're graduating Cubby Schuler. And I feel like everywhere else, we have talent coming back. We're bringing a guy back this year who missed all of last year, Spencer Austin, previous All Ivy League running back, and he joins a room that I think is the deepest in the Ivy League, and with Josh Pitchenberger, Trey Peterson, Nate Denny, Billy Dahl, the talent's just on in that room. And you look at the receiver room, it's sort of the same thing. We have Mason Tipton, Chase Nenad, Dave Pentelis, Ryan Lindley, Mason Ship. We have them all coming back. So, I'm really excited for the season, and I think we have the pieces of the puzzle to, be even better than we were last year, which is going to be, I'm really excited for it.
You mentioned that running back room. You got 3 running backs in there who have each achieved some level of all Ivy accolades here. So you say probably the deepest lineup of running backs in the Ivy League. That's not hyperbole here. Hey, Wande, let's talk about the defense. And I should note for the media folks out there, and we always say this on the air, we say it about Yale, we say it about Harvard, and of course we talk about the captains on the other teams, but Yale is one captain chosen by the team at the end of the preceding season. Just give me a sense a little bit. How meaningful was that to you when you heard that you were selected now to captain this Yale 150 team?
It was very meaningful, very profound. It filled me up, made me warm inside, knowing that my teammates look up to me not only as a leader, but someone that can represent them and someone that, you know, has their back no matter what.
Let's talk about the strengths of this defense. We'll compare it to last year. I think it's the best basis of comparison coming off an Ivy League championship team. What would you point to in terms of the strengths of this defensive unit, and what elements do you think will need to get better during the course of the season?
Strengths, I'll go. You know, we have very seasoned, experienced defensive backfield, bringing back a lot of guys from previous years. You know, Dathan Nickey, Brandon Ben, Sean Guyton. In our linebacker room as well, you know, Hamilton Moore had a great season last year. So did Joseph Vaughn, and we're bringing back Inumidun Ira Durajai as outside backer too. But I think the big difference between this year and last year is we're losing some of our veteran D linemen. Reed Nickerson is an outstanding player for us. He's graduated, and Adam Rain, real presence in the middle. And I think that's one area that we're gonna have to step up on, and people are gonna step up on. We're gonna figure it out during camp.
Let me ask you, looking forward to the first game, because this is a really interesting, compelling opening game for Yale. Not that others have not been, but opening up against Holy Cross. Holy Cross last year had a spectacular year. They have won the Patriot League, I think, 4 years in a row, if I remember correctly. They got into the tournament last year and did very well, coming in preseason number 6 in the nation that I have seen, returning a former player of the year, offensive player of the year in their quarterback. Let's talk about the challenges they'll present. And by the way, they'll have 2 games under their belts when they come into the Yale Bowl for that first game. Talk about, from your defensive perspective, the challenges that you have opening up against a team of this caliber.
One thing I'll say is that we can't just stick our toes in the water, like figuring things out. You know, we got to come out and attack it. You know, Holy Cross, they'll have 2 games under their belt. They have ironed out some of the kinks that come with not playing for a while. And I think, you know, defensively, it's tough when you're playing a mobile quarterback who has an arm, and a mobile quarterback who's pretty physical. And they have a very talented receiver room. They bring back some veterans there. I think, you know, the offensive line is very good, so it's going to be a real physical game. And see, you know, people are going to get punched in the mouth. You know, we're going to take some hits. They're going to take some hits. It's about who's going to stand through adversity.
Yeah. Nolan, let me come back to you a second and get a perspective from you on the defense that Wande is talking about. Now, you haven't started practice yet, but you know these guys from last year. You've been working out. When you're looking across the line at this defense, this will be the 150 team version of a Yale defense. What are you seeing, and what do you think they are going to present to other teams as the greatest challenges?
Yeah. So, you know, I think the biggest thing is their defense with a ton of experience across, you know, all levels. You know, and they play fast. They run to the ball, and, you know, they ain't afraid to hit you. So, you know, going against them every day in practice is, you know, it's pretty tough on me, but, you know, come Saturdays, it makes things a little easier.
And one day I want to flip the script and ask you the same question about the offense. You know, you know what they were last year, and just a high-powered offense. As Nolan mentioned, a couple of significant losses on the offensive line, but a lot of talented folks coming back. So from a defensive perspective, what do you see as the challenges that this year's version of Yale's offense will present for other teams?
Like Nolan said, you know, we battle in practice every day. And I think one thing that we have to our advantage is a big physical offensive line. You know, even though we lose a few guys, but we gain a lot of guys back. And, you know, going against them every day, you know, in the battle of the trenches, the D-line and the O-line, you know, it's really iron sharpens iron. That's one thing, you know, me on the perimeter, you know, every time I get the chance to hit an offensive lineman, it's always a little fun.
I gotta ask you a question, and this will bring Coach Reno back in this conversation, because I mentioned this on the air in some of the games. We talk about the talent that Yale has at the running back position. Right? I mentioned 3 guys who have had all Ivy some level of accolades. just really talented. And then other guys who I wouldn't be surprised to become some level of all. When I look at high school statistics, and Coach, you probably know this, Nolan, you probably know this also, you look at the numbers that Wande cranked out as a running back. All right. State of Maryland, second all time, I believe, to the great Tavon Austin. More than 6,000 yards. I'm trying to pull this back from my memory. Just an astonishing number of yards and touchdowns. And one day I'm thinking that you might be looking at Coach Reno and saying, I can carry the ball for you guys. Have you ever had that thought? You ever had that conversation with them?
The thought and the conversation really was through recruiting, maybe more so way back in 2019 when I first got here. But I think I've accustomed to the defensive mindset and the defensive attitude. It's a lot of it's mental, and I think I got used to it.
I don't know that you always give it up, though. Coach Reno, what do you think? Ever had any sort of an itch coming from Wande that needs to be scratched that says, you know what, I can run with the rock?
Oh, for sure. I mean, we've never had the conversation about him actually playing running back, but it's always been in the back of my mind. If we ever needed to put him over there in a pinch, we could definitely do that, and we'd be more than fine. So, but he's give him credit. He never played in secondary until he got here, and he's developed into an extraordinary DB. And I think a lot of the skills that made him an amazing running back, he's used in the secondary to really make him just as good, if not better, of a DB.
Yeah. Coach, last question for you here, and it goes back to one of the questions that I posed to the guys, and that is the opening game for Yale. It's tough. We've talked about this before. The fact of the Ivy League schedule, it's just different from the other conferences. So you open up almost always with a team that has 2 games under their belt. And one of the football maxims is, you see oftentimes your most significant improvement from your first game to your second game. So you're getting Holy Cross, nationally ranked number 6 in the nation, extraordinarily talented across the board, 2 games under the belt, and getting open up with them in the Yale Bowl. Talk about those types of challenges that are presented, and what do you say to the team about it? A team like that, an opponent like that, coming in for your first game.
Sure. Obviously, we've got a ton of respect for Bob Chesney and Holy Cross. I mean, like, as you mentioned earlier, I mean, they're a national semifinal team, and they've got an extraordinary group coming back, and they do things the right way up there. So for us, it's a great opener. I mean, if you're, as you mentioned earlier, if you want to be an elite team, you got to play elite teams, and you got to go in and put yourself up against the best. And we're very fortunate that they're on our schedule and they're our opener, and we'll have an opportunity to play a great team right off the bat. So I think our guys will have prepared all off season well, and we'll continue that in the preseason. And as I mentioned earlier, I mean there'll be a great opponent coming out of the tunnel at the Yale Bowl, but at the end of the day, it's about us and how well we play our game on both sides of the ball and in the kick game, and how well we do it mentally.
Well, it's everybody's looking forward to a great Ivy season. Certainly, the folks in New Haven are coming off of a championship, ranked preseason number 1 coming into this season. Some fun games scheduled. So, Coach Tony Reno, Nolan Grooms, Wande Owens, want to thank you all for spending some time with us, sharing some thoughts with us, and we'll look forward to seeing you all up on campus for some games. All right, you all be well now. Good luck this season.
Thanks,
Jack.
Thank you.
Our next group gonna line up the folks from Old Nassau. Let's get the guys from Princeton here. So our thanks once again to Nolan, to Wande, to Coach Tony Reno, and looking forward now to our conversation. As I mentioned, Yale opens up that first game Saturday, September 16th with Holy Cross at the Yale Bowl. Now being joined from Princeton, head coach Bob Surace. Always delighted to have him with us. Also, quarterback Blake Stenstrom is joining us. And in a moment or so, we should have linebacker Liam Johnson joining us also. We now have Liam also. So, gentlemen, welcome. Always a pleasure to talk with you. It should be an interesting season across the Ivy League, and certainly for Princeton. Princeton, if you look at all of the predictions, second in the Ivy League preseason poll, and that's kind of a usual spot for Princeton. You're seeing them 1 or 2 over the last decade regularly. So obviously folks have a lot of expectations for this Princeton football team. So let me start off and coach the race with you if I can. And I'm going to ask you the same question that I did for Coach Reno, and that I ask for everybody. And it's essentially, as I referred to it, a State of the Union observation from you for your team. So what are you looking at in terms of this season? What do you think the strengths of this Princeton team would be? What things do you think need to be developed in order to get where you want to go? And then the last question is, where you want to go, the expectations that you think, reasonable expectations there are for this team. Coach, what do you think?
Yeah, well, first off, thank you, Jack. And I've said it the last bunch of years. It just makes our league stronger having you with us and the sacrifices you make. This is my first time being on one of these without Buddy and Al. And, the last 13 times, you got two of the all-time great coaches, not only at their schools and league, but nationally, and, two hopefully potential in certain Hall of Famers, in my opinion, on that. And, every year around January, late January, I'd get a call from Buddy, and it was always something to make the game better. And it was like clockwork. Last week of recruiting, what do you think about this? And it was funny, one of the years he talked about not tackling, and I always looked at not tackling as a competitive advantage, that if we're healthier than our opponents, we win. And, Buddy, being as unselfish and such a great person, looked at it, the game needed to change. And the things he's done not only have helped our league, but have helped football at every level. Al, I got here in 2010, and everything I could do to get my hands on his organization, his recruiting, how he runs a program. He's certainly, in my opinion, the best to ever do it in our league. And I copied everything I could. And he's done it at two different places, at the Ivy League level and also at Union College. And both those guys are incredible mentors. I wish, Buddy well in his recovery, and Al, well in his retirement. In terms about the team, and I do think like the expectations, if you went to Hopewell Valley Pop Warner, it's to win their championship. If you do it at any high school, my son's high school, Notre Dame High School, it's to win the championship. You do it at any college. They're all practicing now. The NFL is now playing the preseason. To me, it's what are your standards, your values, what are your things, and then living up to them, being the best you can be every single day, and focusing on especially the things we control, right? Focusing on the things of being an intelligent football player, a hardworking football player, a prepared football player, and emphasizing those pieces to be as good as possible. And, we emphasize, like, I'm not a big social media person. I've gotten a little better at it, I think. But like we talk about, our hashtag juice, and that's your attitude. It's your enthusiasm and passion. I love the guys we have. Every single day, I come into work with a group that just has this great enthusiasm for life. And a big piece of that, especially before school starts, is this football piece. But they have this incredible balance in what they do in the classroom, what they do in the community. Our performance staff is incredible. I wouldn't want to work with anybody else. We talk about building monsters, hashtag building monsters, and it's how they go into a weight room, a lift, a workout, a run, and how they push themselves to reach their physical strengths that way. And then the last one's the hashtag the 40. And nobody comes to a school like Princeton if they're not looking at what they're going to become after they go to college. And our ability to do that as well as we can, that we're preparing them to be leaders in whatever path they take post Princeton that way. And I'm just blessed the number of times. I was just down in Belmar and bumped into your cousin Steve, right?
He told me so, yeah, on the boardwalk.
I know, and just the hugs and the memories that you share with these people that I either played with, that I'm longtime friends with, or those like Steve that I didn't play with that are part of our community that I love, and just incredible support for us and our league in so many ways. And, I'm excited. The beauty of training camp, you take, we all start 0-0. For 14 years, when the season ended, that Sunday after the season, it's on our first slide, 0 and 0. You start anew, and everything you do from that Sunday before Thanksgiving until you finish the season and Thanksgiving is going to make a difference in what is an incredible league. The parity in our league is so great that every week you have to be on top of your game that way. And I really, just enjoy the building, the team building aspects that on Thursday, we're going to bring in 30 freshmen, right? Who really don't know the standards yet and the culture yet, and their eyes are wide and they don't know where their dorm is and where the facilities are. They haven't been up here to experience all the acclimation, but seeing the upperclassmen, Blake and Liam, being amazing leaders that you'll meet in a second, and how they incorporate them. So the culture just from year to year and the environment we create is one that is, an amazing environment. And it's really because of the leadership of our veteran players that creates that.
Two quick things. And first is, I'm really impressed by you tossing around hashtags here. You and I have known each other for a long time, and I'm thinking, look at that. Look at Bob tossing hashtags around.
I have a great office of athletic communication staff that has pushed me out of my comfort zone. I think that's a good thing for all of us, to go out of our comfort zone. Yeah. That is way out of my comfort zone. And they continue, our liaison, Warren Croxton, tell more about yourself. And the last thing I want is somebody like caring about that I got my hair cut or got groceries or whatever, but, doing it in a way that celebrates, Andre Yoshivas, Henry Bird, Steve Carlson, Jesper Horsted. We got 4 guys that just crushed it, through training camp. And I felt like Friday, every other play was going to Andre in that preseason game, which was really cool.
It was fun watching him. And I've said this before, and I know he was drafted, but having covered him for a couple of years, I kept saying, why is somebody not grabbing him with the 3rd round? Because I just couldn't figure that out. But I think what's going to happen is folks are going to learn very quickly, that he should have been there, and he's going to establish himself very well. And the other comment is talking about getting yourself out of your comfort zone. If you're going to be walking on the boardwalk here in Spring Lake, you got to wear something blue and white. We're not going to allow that black and orange stuff on the boardwalk all the time. It's going to have to be a consent. If you look when you enter the town gates, it says that, by the way. There's a ban about black and orange, but you'll have to look at it a little bit more carefully.
So not only were my wife and I in orange and black with Princeton things on, but when we saw Steve, he was head to toe orange and black, wearing a shirt that we had given him a few years ago. So we were both easily identifiable.
Right. My cousin Steve Reynolds, the captain of the 79 Princeton team. Yeah. So Coach, I know coaches always say, look, this is a different team. We might have some of the same players, but this is still a different team. And you had, again, exceptional success last year, 8-2 record. And interestingly, we went into last game of the Ivy League season with 4 teams, half of the league fighting for that league championship. Give us a sense. Again, you haven't gotten on the field yet. I understand that. But looking at what you think this team is going to be, compare it to last year's team and give us your sense of what some of the differences or some of the similarities might be.
Yeah, a lot of that will come through. I know the qualities of the people. That's going to be very similar. How we work, how we prepare, the extra things our guys do, how they lead. I don't see that changing. We've had 3 Johnson brothers, and, Liam is no different in terms of being exceptional as a leader as his brothers, James and Tommy, right? And they pass these things along because they've learned from each other. And I think if you ask Blake, he doesn't have any, blood brothers, but they're orange and black brothers that he's learned from the Cole Smiths and other guys throughout the years that way. So I think those things are going to be the same. The fun piece is last year, we're talking about, we lost all these 5th-year senior defensive backs. And the fun piece is putting those guys together and seeing young guys step up. And, it's an unknown, right, until they play. But then you finish the season, it's the number 1 ranked defense in the country. Credit our coaches, but really credit our players who did all the work and did all the preparation. This year, it's probably going to be a little bit more newness on the offensive line. We've had 2 years in a row, 3 fifth-year senior offensive linemen that returned, right? So when you do that, not, the young guys don't get quite the same opportunity. They're not as physically developed, as mature, knowing the plays. But I thought our spring, that group just excited me, right? It's the same thing on our D line. Like, we're graduating a number of guys who played that were 4th and 5th year seniors that saw a lot of action. But, we have this young group that just during the spring, Steve Herbert, our D line coach, defensive coordinator, would come in, man, I am loving, and he'd throw out a guy who was on the scout team the year before. And one of those guys I mentioned in the NFL, Steve Carlson, his freshman year, he got in a little bit in blowouts. His sophomore year, he got in a little bit more in blowouts. And then his junior, senior year, he was all Ivy, and now he's going into his 5th NFL season that I just love. To me, these guys come from high school. Every single kid in our league is like the best player on their high school team in their region, some of them in their state, yet you start in college at the bottom of the depth chart, and some guys sprint immediately, but not many. Most of them, they have to crawl, they have to jog, they have to walk, they have to, run. They have to do those other pieces before they sprint. And that piece, to me, our strength staff, our coaches, when they get to the point and the light comes on, man, you go back to your office feeling like this is really cool.
Interesting. You mentioned that. I'm going to get to Blake and Liam in just 1 second, but to follow up on that thought, I know I've said this often on the air about our entire league, the Ivy League. And I recall saying it specifically about a number of Princeton players, as you mentioned, is that I think one of the hallmarks of this league is the idea of development. Coaches will talk about for recruiting, you got to identify somebody, you got to get them, and then you have to develop them. And as you said, not every player walks in as an 18-year-old freshman and is ready to bang at this level. And I think you've mentioned some players had some great success over the years. Patience on the part of the players, patience on the part of the coaching and developmental staff, and then buying into the system here. So I think it's really been a hallmark of the time you've been there. Blake, let me bring you in the conversation if I can. And, I should note that you had a spectacular year last year. You led the league in passing yards, almost 2,800 yards, led in completion percentage, nearly 70% completion percentage. So building off of that, what are your expectations as the quarterback for this highly ranked team? As I said, pick second in the Ivy League prognostications here. And looking at your position and the development that you've experienced here, what are you looking at as the next step of your development?
Good question. First of all, nice to meet you, Jack. Over Zoom, albeit. Yeah, I think, from a personal perspective, I try to approach every game, every season very similarly, just working on a few things in the off season. And then ultimately preparing for kind of week 1, all through training camp. So, next step as a player, just building on a lot of things I've worked on my whole career. Being great in preparation, both in the mental side and the physical side, taking care of my body, as well as just building a good rapport with my teammates. So.
How about this year's version of the offense? Let's start with the wideouts, because you were blessed with some extraordinary talent. We talked about Andre Yoshevich and how he's doing, and Dylan Classy, who had a great career there. And in some ways, and this is something we talked about on the air, in some ways Princeton had become sort of wide receiver over the last decade or so. It seems like, and it's not just a single receiver. It seems like every year you've got at least two talented go-to guys. So significant losses of those players. What are you seeing developing in terms of this new group of wide receivers?
Yeah. It was, like you said, it was really fun to play with Dylan and Andre the past couple of years. They were great talents, great guys, really, really fantastic teammates. But, we've got a number of guys who played a little bit last year and who also looked fantastic in the spring. Whether that's, AJ Barber, JoJo Hawkins coming back from a knee injury, Matthew Mahoney looked fantastic. Same with Luke Coella and Anthony Blend as well. I think between all those guys, our receiver room is going to be very, very talented. And like you said, it wouldn't be surprised to have a couple of those guys leading the league by the end of the year.
And how about the rest of the offense? What are you seeing in terms of the development, the offensive line? You talked about the wide receivers. Got some very talented running backs. Some guys have been banged up a bit over the last few years, and then you lost one of the outstanding running backs last year, transferred out of Princeton. What are you seeing in terms of maybe here's the better way to ask the question. What do you see in terms of how that offense needs to develop to get to where you want it to be this year?
Yeah. I think the talent is totally there between all the different position groups. Running backs you mentioned, John Volker, Darion Murphy, they looked fantastic in the spring. We have tight ends like Caden Dumas, Connor Holstein, Tyler Picknick. They also have come along. I think the biggest thing will come with experience in games, and we'll get a little bit more practice this fall camp. But once guys get in the game and get more comfortable with the speed of everything, I think that'll be the biggest factor in getting guys up to speed and hopefully having a pretty good offense.
Liam, let's talk about the defense a little bit. And Coach Trace mentioned the family lineage of the Johnson brothers. I think I said on the air, and not entirely facetiously, if I had $1 for every time in the last 10 years or so I said Princeton tackled by Johnson, I can fund my grandkids' college educations with that money. So let me start with that personal note, and then we'll talk about the defense and stuff. The idea of following along with brothers who establish their own great traditions. Some people might say, I want to go my own way. You said no. This is the path I want to follow. This is the place I want to be. Why?
I think it all starts with my oldest brother who went to Amherst College. He kind of set the standard for us as far as competition goes. My family is just built off of competition and, competing, whether that's in the classroom, on the field, or even like outside, just doing like being a better person, like doing service. Like we're always competing with each other. I think that's kind of the tradition of my family. And, I saw my brothers, they were like superheroes to me. So saw like Tom go to Princeton. I was like, that dude's a legend. Like, there's no way I'll be able to go to Princeton. And then I saw James go to Princeton. I was like, all right, if I just like do exactly what they did, like maybe I'll get to Princeton. And thankfully it worked out. But I think like they've just set like such a good path for me. It's like kind of simple at this point, just follow what they did and try and tweak some things to kind of surpass them. And I think it's worked for me so far. So, yeah.
I'm sure they're watching, and they might not want to admit it, but at some point in time said, you know what, maybe the little brother is eclipsing us all here in some way, shape, or form. Let's talk about the defense, right? So talk about coming back, what you think the strengths will be for this defense. And then, as with every team every year, what developments do you think are going to be necessary in order to get the defense, hopefully the defense last year, the best in the nation at a lot of these statistical categories. What do you think has to be done to get this year's defense into that echelon?
Yeah, me and Coach Therese had a meeting in January, and one of the grows that I wanted to make was becoming a better leader. And I think everything comes down to leadership at the end of the day, and the leader is taking extreme ownership of the guys in the room and the guys on the defense. I think we have the talent every year. I think we had the talent last year. I think we had the talent the year before. It's just a matter of how well the leaders can lead and really get the younger guys to buy into the standard that's been set before us. I think I like, in my opinion, there's always talent. It's just a matter of how hard you can get the guys to work for you.
Coach, last question for you, if I can. And under your tutelage and with your assistance and all the developmental staff, it's been a great run for Princeton football. You're either coming in first or second pretty much every year here. Coming in terms of preseason predictions, again, either first or second every year, second here this year, but with a significant vote total. What do you say to your guys at the beginning of this season? They'll know. I mean, they know that where they are in the predictions for the season. They know what the history and what the successes have been for these teams in the past. What do you focus on that? Do you talk about what we've done in the past, or do you try to just get it to 2023?
Yeah, I'm sure Liam and Blake are laughing because we literally turned the page the day after the season. And thank our seniors, and like I miss them, I love them, but the reality is it's a new season, and you never start where you left off, and it takes a lot of effort. We got guys like Blake and Liam and Jalen Travis. They live trying to grow as leaders and think of ways we can be better. They challenge me in ways I can be better. That's the fun piece of it, that not every day is going to be the best day, right? We're going to make mistakes. We're going to make errors. They're 20 years old. They're young guys, but keeping that same mindset where you have growth and you have grit, and that piece is so much fun to see it come together. And when it comes together at the end of the year, it all works out, right? Now, is the ball always going to bounce the right way? Some years it's bounced in our favor, some years it hasn't, but we're fighting for something meaningful at the end of the year. But it's all those 6 a.m. mornings, and Liam and Blake have been to hundreds of 6 a.m. mornings where they had projects due, papers due, internships, things like that, and yet they still continue to be leaders and show up with this passion and energy. And it's really fulfilling as a coach to see that happen.
Well, looking forward to the season. We've got in the ESPN package, we've got Princeton a few times, as a matter of fact, in the 6 games that are being done, including, and if you're looking at the projections and if they're going to play out 1 versus 2, the next to last game of the season, Yale Princeton at Princeton. And I know I had conversations with the ESPN folks about what games they should be looking at. And I said, that's one of the ones you need to be looking at. So we'll look forward to covering you, to seeing all the other games that Princeton's going to be playing. Coach Surace, Blake Stenstrom, Liam Johnson. Thanks so much, gentlemen, for joining us. We'll look forward to talking to you as we get into the season. You all be well now.
Thank you so much. Yep. Thank you, Jack.
Thanks, Jack.
All right. Take care, guys. Bye. All right. Next up in our gathering is going to be the folks from the University of Pennsylvania. And we're going to have head coach Ray Priore is going to be with us, wide receiver Josh Casilli, linebacker Jonathan Melvin. Let's see if we can get them all in to join us. Coach Priore there. And Josh is joining us. And as soon as we have Jonathan also. And we have Jonathan now. All right. So gentlemen, welcome to all of you. Delighted to have you with us. As we said, head coach Ray Priore, wide receiver Josh Casilli, linebacker Jonathan Melvin. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us here on our Ivy League football media day. I've got some questions for all of you, but I'm going to start as I have with everybody with head coach Ray Priore. And coach, always good to see you. Pleasure to chat with you whenever we get a chance to talk.
Absolutely, Jack. I hope all is well.
Good. Thank you. And you also. So let me, again, ask you the same question that I'm asking everybody, all the head coaches. And that is for what I've described as kind of a State of the Union, quick State of the Union address here. And in terms of this upcoming season, what your thoughts are on the upcoming season, especially the strengths that you see for this team coming in and things that you have to develop. And I should mention, coming off of an outstanding season, 8-2 last year, just recovering marvelously from what was just a very unusual for Penn season before that. But coming back, as I said, to 8-2, preseason prediction, number 3 in the Ivy League. But a lot of folks are looking at this team saying it wouldn't be surprised at all to see this Penn team on the top of the league at the end of the season. So let's get your sense for how you're looking at this season, strengths coming into it, things that need to be developed.
Absolutely, Jack. Appreciate that. And first, foremost, I think is one thing I would like to mention. A couple of things. One is the thoughts and prayers for Coach Stevens and family. This, obviously, Buddy is such a key component for all these years in the league, and then obviously my former boss Al Bagnoli retiring. So shout outs and kudos to he as well. But again, it's a game played by real people there, and you get to be very close with these individuals, players, and coaches. Moving on, but as you did say, we felt obviously very, very good coming off of last season. Again, going into it, we had not fared well the year before, but it was a building block. We made a handful of changes, and I think we got to tip my hat to our leaders, the leaders of our team. The kids that came back were very focused a year ago, very, very determined to do it. Coaching staff very much in line. And we did. And again, I will say, game of football is always about the close games. And we did a uncanny way of winning close games, because that was how we detailed our work during the course of the spring and summer and everything else leading into it. And hopefully that has been a way for us to catapult into this offseason, really finishing up on a great high note. And as I was talking to the guys before in our team about chasing that great feeling, doing what we did up at Princeton last game was phenomenal. But I also wanted to understand what we felt at Brown game, where we did not meet the standards and stuff. And at Penn, we have high standards, 18 championships in our time, and we have a high standard of being successful, and these guys do know it. So it's been building blocks. We've been taking it step by step from the offseason and trying to do it. We do not name our captains until preseason, because I truly believe that our leaders come from the upperclassmen, fifth year and seniors, and I want them all to have the opportunity to do it. We have leadership council and all those great things, but all in all, both Jonathan and Josh have been tremendous leaders leading their classes on in. But we have a tremendous group of seniors returning, a lot of optimism, but there are also holes to fill. I would say this and whatnot, but our team MVP last year might have been our punter, Ben Crim. He put us and set us up in such unique situations, booming the ball down there, pinning the people on deep. So it's every detail that matters, as well as the receiver, the quarterback. Everyone is a key component to having success. So really excited to get started. Players report Thursday, so looking forward to it.
Talk about a little bit about what you saw in the spring. And again, as we mentioned, you don't practice this starting until the next couple of days. So it'll be different. And certainly what you see preseason is different what you see in the springtime. But clearly as a head coach, you're always looking for development. You're looking for individual development from your players, and you're looking for the team development. So coming off of, as I said, an excellent 8-2 season, talk about what your thoughts were once the spring had played out for this coming season.
Sure. You want to see growth. You want to see growth. You want to see growth in not only your upperclassmen taking that next step, but your freshmen and sophomores and guys who are getting formable reps in the spring, and we did see that. So coming off the last our quote unquote spring game, cautious optimism going through with it, but we all know as a player there that growth has to continue. I mean, it starts right after Thanksgiving, and it goes through the winter program and the 6 a.m. AM runs. And in the summertime, we've had our biggest number of guys on campus all summer doing the virtual internship jobs, working in Philly, and that commitment to the excellence is something that we've seen continue to grow. But it's done by the kids are following our leaders, and both Jonathan and Josh and their class of fifth years and senior and true seniors have done a tremendous job that way. But it's still a lot of work to be done. Just you got to win the day and then take it to the next day and do it. And I'll state the obvious: health of your team matters most dearly, because the year before we had gotten injured in the wrong positions and wrong places, and none of us are that deep to recover from key components of your team coming back from that.
Anybody who has watched Penn over, let's say, the last 20 years, they could probably go back farther than that, knows that a hallmark of their success has always been exceptional quarterback play. Talk about where you are last year and then carrying over into this season at that position.
Sure, absolutely. I think going into last season, we knew, because we had fortunately, in our situation in 2022, we had made the change midway, and we saw the growth of Aiden Sayin, the last 5 games of his freshman year really begin to take off. We knew we had a very special talent in that position. Bringing in Dan Swanstrom, our offensive coordinator, and the things we were able to do with him and Josh in the receiving core. His football IQ is high, very athletic, and once again, a very, very good person in the huddle, in the locker room as a true leader. And I think it all starts with that position. I don't think you're a good football team unless you have that position that can be formidable of a player that you have to defend. And that's at every level. I don't care where you Pop Warner to the NFL. You're not as good unless you have that key trigger man. And I think we stay healthy there, and we do have a couple young guys behind them, which I think we've added some good depth. I think there goes how we can be. And on top of that, I think the hallmark of our team, we played really good defense. And I think our defense has really been pivotal last year in terms of putting us in that situation to be a successful team.
Let me talk with players a little bit here, and Josh, I'll start with you if I can, and ask you to follow up on Coach's thoughts about the offense here, where you got to last year, and where you think you can be by the end of this year.
Yeah, I think the biggest stride we made was, not making the mental mistakes. I think that was the big issue a couple of years ago. Is, you're just ruining drives with dumb cheap shots after the play. And I think when you eliminate that, you have the kind of defense you have playing lights out, you're going to have opportunities to win games. And I think we took advantage of those opportunities last year and had a great season. And I think moving forward, this will be my first year having the same offense going into the spring. So, when you're putting a new offense, you're worried about, am I getting my assignment right? Am I running the right routes? You're kind of running lines, and now you can experiment a little bit, and you can just play football. And especially when you have someone like Aiden back there in his second year with the offense, Coach Swanstrom has given him a little bit more flexibility within the offense, and I'm just really excited to see. I know we have 2 returning starters as of now in the receiving core, and that's huge. And we have a lot of young guys, who can play football, and I'm really excited.
If somebody said to you, okay, here's what you have to defend in order to beat Penn's offense, what are the 2 or 3 most significant things that you'd point to?
I would say one, anytime, I think you got to stop the run. I know obviously you lose guys like Trevor Radosevich, who's been a big leader, and he's been playing for the last 4 years. You lose Ben Hoyting, but at the end of the day, you recruit athletes who you think are going to help the team, and they're going to step up. And that's kind of the story of how football works. People step into roles, and I'm excited to see who that may be. And you have guys like John Malatu back there. You have Jacob Cisneros coming back from an ankle injury, so I'm just really excited to see how the ground game pans out. But I think you got to stop the ground game, because we have if we can run the ball, then we'll have threats on the outside, be able to make plays. But we can attack you many different ways. So I don't want to give too much away here.
The other guys are taking notes on this.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Jonathan, let's bring you in the conversation here, and let's get your sense. Same question that I asked Josh, but from the defensive side of the ball, looking at how the Penn defense played last year and played very well. Coming into this year, what are you hoping? How are you hoping that this defense can improve from last year's?
Well, yeah, I could just say, our defense, we are very hungry, very, very hungry, all across the board. We are a very experienced unit. From the front 7 to the secondary as well. Joey Slackman, Michael Morris, Paul Jennings, Bryce Hall, Jaden Key, Shiloh, Kendra Smith, Logan Nash. We have a lot of guys in the LB core with Jack Fairman, Kadar Machen, Aiden Nash. We have a lot of experience, a lot of guys who are really hungry. We want it. We really want it, and we kind of go off of that every single time we go on the field to work, every single time we're in the weight room. And I feel like if there was one thing specifically that we could really improve on, I think that we hurt us a lot last year was just, aggressive, always, better tackling team, always, that's comes down to it when it comes to defense, flying to the ball awesomely. But, that's just part of our standard. And I think we're really just upholding our standard from day one when we start camp to, the last game against Princeton is really just going to establish where we want to be and where we're going to maintain it as well. So there's a lot of things I can say where we want to be, but I just know we're very hungry and we're ready to get after it. That's the best way for me to put it right there.
Let me get your perspective as a defensive player on the Penn offense. So if you were and look, we haven't started practice yet, but you got a sense, you've gone through the spring. And if someone was saying to you, all right, what do you got to stop on that offense? If you were playing your own offense, what would the focus be on what you need to most significantly, what you'd have to stop?
Well, I have to say, and I guess I can speak for Coach P and Josh as well. Coach Swanstrom is a genius in regards to the offensive scheme, and it's really when it comes to stopping our offense, it's iron sharpening iron moments. We're going to get them, they're going to get us, and I can't say there's really one specific thing we got to do that's going to shut them down. I think the offense did a great job of adapting to utilizing different pieces here and there, and we're going to do the same thing as well. So, like I said, I can't really think there's a weak spot. I think that, everyone game plans for whatever they feel may be, but as smart as Coach Swanstrom is and as talented as our offense is, they're going to have other ways to attack us as well. And then, that comes right back with us understanding. And then we got to do better and fix that point where they might have got it last time. So, like I said, it's a consistent battle back and forth. There's a lot of healthy competition. There's a lot of excitement. And, our hunger runs deep throughout the whole team. And it's really what drives us and what inspires us throughout this whole season. So,
well, let me bring in, we got some media folks here who have some questions for you. First, we're going to bring in Glenn Papazian is with us. Glenn, you got a question?
Yeah, first one for Coach Priore and Ray, number one, good afternoon and best of luck for this upcoming season. Now, last year you were able to turn it around from the season before. Knowing that the team those experienced players have been able to make the improvement, do you see that as a factor this year for the team getting even better?
Yeah, Glenn, thanks for the question. I think it's always a stepping stone. I think our kids learn. I think Josh said it earlier. We detailed our work. We were accountable, and more importantly, the trust factor. Okay, our kids trusted everybody in the line. Coaches are coaches, coaches are players, players are coaches. And I think when you have the accountability, you have that trust, it continues to build, and hopefully we'll continue to build it. But let's remember, okay, it starts from step one. Okay, we can't be thinking we're an experienced team in here and here. It comes down to working on those fundamentals and basics, and the fundamentals and basics are leadership and accountability, which our kids do a great job with. And we're going to, take, first day preseason camp, step one's, there. We're not going to try to do too much and just try to build upon it. So, again, at Penn, the expectation is always high. We obviously want to be playing for meaningful games in November, late in the season, like we did last year, and a little bit of help from your friends and good things could happen. Hopefully we can control things and just take it step by step and open up at Colgate on the first the first game. But more importantly, we're so excited for Saturday morning. Haven't slept in a couple of weeks like everybody else. We're really itchy to get started. Thank you.
Josh, last season you apparently were beginning to get a good chemistry going with quarterback with Aiden. Do you see that growing this year, and how good can that combination be?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously Coach P mentioned prior, a couple of years ago, we had injuries to guys like Rory, and Ryan Cragen. So I kind of stepped in, and at the exact same time, Aiden got an opportunity to start. So every game I've ever played has been with Aiden. It's kind of all I know. And, it's kind of been developing through the years. I think this summer, especially, I've been sitting down with him a lot and, kind of getting his thoughts on, how he wants me to run certain things or what he likes to see from me. And I think if we just continue to build and, build in the film room, I mean, sky's the limit. So I'm super excited.
Thank you.
Glenn, thank you. Also, another question, Harrison Russo Brown is with us and has some questions for the folks. Harrison?
Hey, thanks, Jack. Great job today hosting Media Day as always. I have a question for all three representatives for Penn. I'll start with Coach Priore. Wanted to ask you about the strength of this secondary. Guys like Kendron Smith, Logan Nash, Jaden Key, Shiloh Means returning. Seems like that'll be a strong group for you guys. What are your expectations for the secondary?
Well, I think it all starts, again, on offense with the quarterback, but on defense, having a great secondary. Part of having a real good secondary is having really good pass rushers up front. Okay. Minimize the amount of time a quarterback has to throw the ball. You become really good. But all of our secondary players that you made, Jaden, Shiloh, Kenjan, okay, the Nash brothers, we got Nash triplets, I should say. We got 3 of them back there in the secondary. Grant Parker. We have a number of young men who've gotten true on-field experience, which really, really helps. Guys coming back with an extra year play with Kendron, and so we're excited about both what we have in youth, but also the experience factor with it. But it's so important. I think if you can shut the people down, man-free is the choice of the word right now for all the RPO game, and you can develop the people to the run. You get the best combination of those things. And I'd be naive to say this, but I think the key winning the key moments of the games, right? So I think it's winning the turnover battle, the picks and opportunities we had that last year, red zone and stopping big plays. I think was a huge part of it. I think offenses today are trying to make it a one-play drives, and I think that puts a lot of pressure on your defensive backs and your secondary. And I think those kids came up big a year ago, but it's great to have those guys back with lots of experience.
Thanks, Coach Priori. Appreciate it. And staying on the defensive side of the ball, Jonathan, wanted to talk to you. I heard you mention them. Those defensive tackles in front of you, Michael Morris, Joey Slackman, them clearing up lanes. How much does that help the linebacker room?
Oh, man, it helped them tremendously. Not only Joey and Michael, but we also got Will Seiler, Travis McFarland, like I said, Bryce Hall. We got guys who I know they just as hungry to get to the ball as I am. So, in a way, we're competing. But at the same time, everyone executing and doing their job. It just it makes the game more enjoyable, more fun. Open up gaps to go shoot gaps, shoot holes, and trust our keys when they're taking on double teams and situations like that. So for sure, them executing and doing their job and taking on the doubles they have to makes our jobs a lot easier for sure.
Thanks, Jonathan. And then wrapping up here with Josh, I wanted to talk to you about the receiver room. You kind of mentioned it. There's a lot of young guys who could break out, some returners like yourself, Malone Howley, Sterling, and Julian Stokes. Just talk about that receiver room a little bit, that group you guys have.
Yeah, it definitely has been building. We got a lot of athletes in there, and I will say Wande Owens isn't the only athlete in that family. We got his brother BC out there. He's very talented, and guys like Jared Richardson, Sterling, Julian Stokes. You can't say enough about him. Probably one of the most. I think he is the most athletic guy I've seen. And we have a lot of different ways to attack you. And we're looking to get more big playability out of our guys this year. I think last year was more methodical. But we didn't have a lot of one play, explosive plays. And I think that's what we're, looking to get out of these guys. So.
Thanks, guys. Best of luck this season.
Thank you.
Yes, let me ask another quick question. And Coach, I'll start with you. I mentioned at the beginning that once again, the Ivy League in their partnership with ESPN has 6 Ivy games along the linear network. So you're getting national exposure here. For you folks at Penn, Brown is coming in to Franklin Field, which, by the way, is just one of the great venues, all-time great venues of college football. I love playing there. I love going back and doing games there. They come in on the 27th, I think. Coach, from your perspective as a head coach and recruiting, dealing with your guys here, talk a little bit about the significance of being able to say, hey, we got a national television exposure here now for this game.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I think it's helped the league overall, just with what you say, exposure out to West Coast kids there. Your alumni base. I'm not sure what the numbers look like, but people are seeing us out there, which is really great. And the Brown game in particular is going to be a very special game, as you do know that Penn and Brown back in 50 years ago, okay, were the first 2 Black starting quarterbacks in college football. Okay, Marty Vaughn for Penn and Dennis Coleman for Brown, and we're celebrating that special occasion. So, something for the league to be said of something pretty unique, pretty awesome, honestly. Which we can hold in our heritage and that stuff moving forward. But the exposure for that, I think everybody wants to see themselves on TV and play those great games. It changes your schedule. Thankfully, we're home this year and not traveling up to Dartmouth and that long trip. A little bit of home cooking, but the games are always great. The energy is phenomenal. It's Parents' Weekend for us, so we'll have a lot of folks on campus, so it should be a great one.
That's pretty exciting. I didn't realize it was Parents Weekend for you for that game. Josh, how about you? The idea of, you have buddies you played with, buddies you played against in high school that are out there playing now. The idea that says, Friday night, and part of the allure of this package is Friday night, it's pretty much given over to the Ivy League. You're not competing on a Saturday with all the other games going on there. How about the impact that it has on you as a player, Josh?
It makes you kind of feel like you're back in high school a little bit. You kind of miss the Friday night lights, move it to Saturday. I know, back in my community, Friday night, it's huge, whole community come out. But it's also nice, if you are playing on that Saturday, you get to watch some of your buddies that are playing for other teams. You kind of get a look at some of the other teams, which is, it's cool. But there's nothing that's going to beat those Friday night lights. People, you hear alumni talking about it. Nothing's better than high school Friday night. So it's nice to get back to that.
That's interesting. I grew up on the Jersey Shore. We were one of the few areas still played all our games on Saturday afternoons. And I know when I would talk with my teammates at Yale from California and Texas and down the South, and they're looking at me saying, "You playing on Saturday afternoons?" And it's like, well, that's kind of what it was back then. Jonathan, how about you? The lure of the big time national Friday night lights, Brown versus Penn.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be nice to be able to play underneath the lights, the temperature drop a little bit, and being underneath the Frank lit up like that and having friends and family there. It's definitely exciting, to get back to think about those high school days. But also at the end of the day, it's another game. You got to approach every single game, and it's just like that on the big screen, and don't approach it any differently. I think we look at every single game. This is a big game because that's how competitive the league is, and 10 games, you got a lot of talent there. So it's exciting, but again, it's just another one of those big games we got to prepare ourselves for to dominate.
It'll be fun to be there and to see all that. And Coach, as you said, I'm sure we at ESPN will make sure we talk about that great event and the fact that this was such a meaningful moment back then for college football. Reminder, you all open up at Colgate on Saturday, September 16th. So, and I should mention, I had neglected to say Princeton opens up at San Diego on that same date also. So, gentlemen, Coach, Josh, Jonathan, thanks so much for joining us. You all be well. Good luck this season. We'll look forward to talking with you down the road.
Great. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care. We are now going to bring in our friends, the folks from Harvard University. We should have with us head coach Tim Murphy is going to be joining us. Defensive lineman Nate Leskovec and offensive lineman Jacob Rizzi should be here. So let's get them dialed in and joining us, and we can continue our conversations. I think we got Coach Murphy connected. Coach, how are you? Always good to see you.
Jack, great to see you as well.
Got Jacob on with us, and now we've got Nate also. So we should be good. So
looking for Thor Griffith, I think, too here. Oh, Jake Rizzi's here. Okay, great.
Jake, good. So, gentlemen, welcome to all of you to this. Coach, you've done it before, but our 2023 Ivy League Football Media Day. We're delighted to have you all join us, and we can spend some time talking with you, getting some of your thoughts on the upcoming season. So, welcome to all of you. And Coach, I will start with you with the same question that I've asked for all the coaches, and will continue to ask here. And I've referred to it as something of a State of the Union address, if you would, although significantly shorter than the ones we see coming out of Washington. But to get your sense of coming into this new season, how you're looking at it, pointing to what do you think some of the strengths are for this team. I mean, we haven't started practice yet, but you have a good sense of that. Some of the strengths and the things that you're going to focus on that you think need to be developed to have the kind of season you're hoping to have, Coach.
Sure, Jack. Well, first of all, just want to say congrats to Al Bagnoli. I know everybody's recognized Al, but one of the Ivy League and to have had the success that he's had at two different schools, truly amazing. He will be missed. Great guy, great coach, and obviously a great competitor. Also want to thank a lot of the people who have mentioned to me or asked me about Buddy and Kirsten. Obviously, their family to us. And I spoke with Kirsten this morning. I'll see Buddy again tomorrow afternoon. And, they're doing as well as can be expected.
Yep.
It's a long road back, but Buddy's the toughest guy I know. And if anyone can do it, he can do it. But do appreciate all the thoughts and prayers that people have sent Buddy and Kirsten's way. And please continue to do so. As far as
just jump in for 1 second. And as you know, I count Buddy as a friend, as a dear friend, and I've had some contact with Kirsten also. And as with everybody, I think everybody who knows them knows if anybody can come back from this, it's certainly going to be Buddy Teven. So I'd ask you to give him a hug for me when you see him.
You got it, Jack.
Good, thank you.
As far as the 2023 season, I think like everybody else, you can't wait to get started. We all play games where we're playing teams that have already had 6 weeks of practice and they got a couple games under their belt, and we're no different. We come out of the gate pretty fast against a top 20 FCS team in St. Thomas. They went 10-1 a year ago. They'll have had 6 weeks of practice, 2 games. So, we've got to grow up fast. To that point, when you look at your obvious strengths, it all starts, I always talk about it all starts on defense. It all starts up front. And our D-line led by preseason All-American Thor Griffith at defensive tackle, and our captain Nate Leskovic at defensive end. That bodes really well, having 2 really outstanding veteran guys up front there. If you look at the offensive side of the ball, at least the obvious piece for us is got a really strong veteran receiving corps led by Tyler Neville at tight end, a bunch of veteran wide receivers, Caden Oderman, Cooper Barkay, Scotty Woods, Ledger Hatch. Those things are going to make our transition for a new quarterback definitely a little bit easier. If you look at our schedule, as people would allude to, we used to have an opportunity to maybe have somewhat easier out of league games, but it's been very tough to get those folks to schedule us over the last 5 to 10 years. And this will be one of the toughest out of league schedules we've had. We'll have 2 FCS top 20 teams in Holy Cross and St. Thomas. We'll have an HBCU team that has dramatically improved. And we had a terrific battle with Howard down in Washington, D.C. a year ago. We'll have them at home this year. So those are some exciting things for our players and for our fans, certainly. If you look at the quarterback position, arguably the most important position at any level, college or pros or high school, it's going to be very different. We lost our top 3 quarterbacks, were all seniors a year ago. So on one hand, we're not coming in with a really experienced quarterback core, but we're excited. Despite the loss of our top 3 guys a year ago, we've got guys like Connor Iso, a senior, Jaden Craig, a sophomore, and Charles DePrima, a junior. They battled it out in the spring. That battle will continue in preseason. But believe it or not, we're really excited about those guys. And there may be opportunities for more than one guy to play as well. As everybody has said, I think the league is more balanced now than it has been in my 30 years. Every team has athletes. Every team is well coached. And because of that, every team is a grind. So we got a lot of work to do. Like everybody in our league that's just starting practice at the end of this week, we have a short time to do it, but we're really excited to kick off the 2023 season.
You've had such great success, and I will toss this out as an unsolicited compliment. I've said this on the air almost every time I've done one of your games. Just so impressed with what you've done. I absolutely believe, and I'm a vice chair of the National Football Foundation College Hall of Fame. I don't have a vote, but I absolutely believe when you step down, you're going into that Hall of Fame where you belong, with some of the greats of this, including my coach, Carm Koza at Yale. So I just want to start off with a compliment because I think it's well-deserved for your time there and what you've done with Harvard and the successes on the football field and off the football field, what your young men have done afterwards.
Well, Jack, as always, you're very kind. I just want to go on the record of saying, if you look at the student athletes we've had during our 30-year tenure, just amazing kids. And I'm sure whether you're at Harvard, Yale, Princeton, or anybody in the Ivy League can say the same thing. But it's been remarkable. And, we all know we recruit high character kids, and you don't get into an Ivy League school if you don't. But it's how those kids transcend what you think their initial levels are. And that character piece comes out not just in terms of being a good citizen, but being incredibly highly motivated kids. And that's been the key to our success. It's quite frankly as simple as that.
And it's not just, although it's important what's on the field, and I know, Carm Koza, who I was very close to before he passed away, would say this, and I'm sure you would say this also, and I would echo it, knowing the Harvard people that I know. And he would say, I'll take guys who played for me with what they do with their lives afterwards, and I'll compare them with any other academic institution or any other department within our own institutions. And I think I am certain you would echo that comment.
There's no question. And when our kids leave, when they leave school, that character piece has a whole lot to do with their success, because it's one thing how brilliant someone can be. It's another thing to have the character and the ability to be able to be a great leader, to somehow have that incredible competitiveness in whatever field you're in. And, the Ivy League has an extraordinarily graduate group of their student athletes.
Let me come back to the quarterback position. All right. Because again, anybody who has followed Harvard football the time you've been there, let's talk about 30 years, knows that there was a steady progression. I added it up one time. I don't remember what the numbers were, but it's something like every 2 years or so, there's a first team All-Ivy quarterback coming out of Harvard. In addition to, I might be wrong, but maybe at least 4 offensive players of the year, maybe more, coming from the quarterback position at Harvard. And this is not to diminish any of the guys that have played the last couple of years, but you haven't had that. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are in terms of this group coming up and their ability, because we know we are a quarterback centric league. You can probably say that about a lot of leagues and conferences in the country, but we certainly are. Your thoughts on what you think you might have this season at that position?
But to your point, Jack, if you look at the Super Bowl, you had 2 of the great quarterbacks in the NFL playing there. Obviously, that's predictable. You're not going to get there without that these days. If you look at the teams, probably the top 6 teams in the country that played at the highest FBS level in the bowl games, they all had great quarterback play. Now more than ever, you have to have that. I think part of it is, we're seeing a lot more dual threat quarterbacks, even in the NFL. And quite frankly, if you look at that Philadelphia team that lost the Super Bowl, okay, they were one turnover away from winning it. And that quarterback may or may not have been the best throwing quarterback in the NFL, but those type of guys are really hard to beat. And I think it's the same. If you've got the top quarterback or quarterbacks in the league at any level, obviously that's going to help you be a better football team. And there's really no getting around that. We've had good kids and good players over the last several years, but to your point, we probably haven't had a dominant quarterback. Now, of course, if you have a great offensive line, you have a great run game, you can make a good quarterback into a dominant quarterback. So it is a team thing, but there's no getting around the fact that in our sport, the most important position is the quarterback position. And that's just the reality of it. And again, on one hand, you could have the woe is me, Jack, because you graduated your top 3 quarterbacks. But we look at it differently. We really believe that over the next 3 to 4 weeks, we're going to develop a couple of good quarterbacks. And obviously, we went through that process in the spring, and that process continues. But, whether it's Connor Easthope, Jaden Craig, Charles DePrima, who will battle it out, or some combination thereof, I'm convinced the quarterback position is going to be a strong position for us this year.
Certainly look forward to see how that develops here. Jacob, question to you, and then I'll get something to Nate, and then I've got a number of folks, media folks, that want to jump in on this conversation. So Jacob, let me start with you. Again, having watched Harvard over the years, called a number of the games recently, one of the things you point to is just an outstanding ground game. And again, you can spit out names, and these guys, all Ivy players, a lot of them getting the shot in the league, really a lot of talent, but as we know, I don't care how, this is the ultimate team game. I don't care how good and talented a running back is, unless somebody's throwing blocks, they're not getting any. So talk a little bit about last year's offensive line and offense, and how you see everything playing out for this year's team.
Yeah, I think at Harvard, we take great pride in our run game. It helped a lot to have Aiden Morgay last year and Sona Anto. We have a couple of young guys filling their roles this year that I'm pretty excited about. We're giving a lot of young guys new opportunities. On the O-line, we're only returning myself and Austin Gentle, but we got position battles. We're trying to figure out who fits where. But in the springtime, I think we went through a lot of really good competitions for for different positions on the O-line. I think that we're going to continue that mentality of winning in the run game. I think that holds great pride in our film room and all that, just watching ourselves be dominant. I think that is something that we were going to really focus on this season.
And Nate, let me talk with you similarly about the defense. And we talked with Coach about, all the great quarterbacks that are coming out of Harvard over the years. We mentioned the great running backs coming out of the years. And again, you can't have great running backs without great offensive line play. But last few years, and again, from being on the air here, we talk a lot about the D-line at Harvard. So we've got yourself and Thor. I heard Truman Jones' name mentioned yesterday on one of the NFL games. So he's making some plays and made a whole lot of plays when he was there. And I'm always curious about the identity and the culture when there's a position group that year in, year out is just cranking out really talented ball players. Why do you think that is? And I don't diminish the linebackers or the D-backs or anything at Harvard. Let's just focus on the defensive line a little bit. What is it about that, do you think, that has generated those players?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. I think it starts with Coach Johnson and Coach Horan, our two D-line coaches who have done a phenomenal job for us over the years. Definitely wouldn't want to play for anyone else. And then the other obvious component is recruiting. We got guys in who are good athletes, and then they come into our film room and they get into our program and they understand how we do things. I think on the D-line, it's very much been kind of like the rich get richer type of situation where there's a standard that's been set, and then all the younger guys have to do is come in and very much integrate into that culture. And I think we've set up our room in a way to where that can be conducive towards success, right? The other thing too is I think we're definitely put in some situations to be successful, right? Because I think the D-line is a strength of our team. And I think a lot of that has to do with Coach Larkey. I think Coach Larkey's, one of the better coaches in the league, our defensive coordinator. He's just done a phenomenal job and puts our team in positions to be successful, not necessarily a position group, but it's worked out over the past couple of years where we've really had some high caliber players and, humbly happy to be a part of that for sure.
Got a number of folks who want to jump into the conversation here, some other media folks. Let me start with Bernie Corbett from Harvard Radio. Bernie, always good to have you with us here. Let you jump in with your question. Bernie, you still with us? All right, we'll jump past that and maybe come back to Bernie. How about Sasha Abrams? Sasha, you with us for a question? Yeah, we've got Sasha, I think. Sasha, jump on in.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
We got you. Welcome.
All right, thank you. Jacob, as you mentioned, you're one of the two returning starters on the offensive line this season. As you look back to spring practice, how do you see the line developing with 3 new starters?
Yeah, I think that guys are moving around. Not to get too specific, I think it's going to look different than it did last year. We lost 3 really, really outstanding offensive linemen. All 3 grad transferred: Mason Williams, Scott Elliott, and Alec Bank. Phenomenal offensive linemen who are also blessed on staying healthy for the majority of the season, with Mason going down late. For the most part, I think we're looking to, have some young guys fill those roles. And Scott Elliott, one of its major components was how smart he was and how he was able to lead us so effectively. I think we're looking for someone who can fill that role in terms of the field general position. I think that's super important to us because we take picking up the blitz very seriously. For the other 2 positions, I think it's going to be a really heated battle that's been going on throughout spring ball and will continue in fall camp that I'm super excited about.
Thank you.
Sasha, that good? Do you have anything else?
No, I'm good. Good for
Great.
me. you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. I think Alex Bispoli is with us and wants to join the conversation. Alex, jump in if you would.
Thanks, Jack. And you're doing a great job here today. Thanks so much for doing this. The first question for Coach Murphy. You talked a lot about, some of just the unknowns. You get 3 new coaches on your staff, although one, had been there for a few years. A lot of turnover on the roster beyond the quarterbacks. Were you maybe put a little bit more at ease after spring practices? And if so, where did you maybe feel like coming out of that, okay, we're better than I thought when we were going in to get ready for the season?
Sure, Alex. Well, I think in life in general, and certainly in any level of college football, the only constant is change. You got to change every year, unlike a pro team where you got, 25 outstanding players coming in. You got 25 new, hopefully outstanding young players coming in your freshman class. You've got guys that, the offensive line leaves and new guys have to step up. So, this is something we deal with on an annual basis. But the reality is that, we're excited. And if I had to say one position that we're excited about, and I'm being a little bit redundant here, but when you lose your top 3 quarterbacks and you're bragging about your next 3 who haven't taken a college football snap, it's not easy to do. It's not easy to pull off. But again, we're bullish on the quarterback situation. The only variable being, which guy's going to be the starter, which guy may be a certain situation type player. But I think we're going to have quality and depth at that position.
Thanks, Coach. And just had a quick question for Nate. The last few years, as Jack talked about, that defensive line has been so dominant. You've been a part of it. And a lot of those guys, like yourself, started playing at a young age, or young in your college career. You've been have the opportunity to play along Thor Griffith the last few years. How much fun is it to play alongside him and work with him and making pressure on the quarterback? It just seems like he has a lot of joy in his game, and the two of you are extremely productive.
Yeah, it's unreal. I think on the D line, it's a great example of us making each other better. You can't, block one guy with 2 people and then do the same thing with another guy. We just open up opportunities for each other. And Thor's a phenomenal player. I anticipate him being an All-American this year, and we have sky high hopes for him for sure. So I guess as a leader of the team, himself being one also, I'm just trying to do what I can to make sure that he's successful. But I mean, he's a wrecking ball. I mean, he's an absolute mutant. I think he squats 700 pounds, benches 5. He can't clean at all because he's got a little bit of flexibility issues. But he gets off the ball and he changes directions really well. So it's been fun playing alongside him, and he's a very special player.
Jack, if I could add on to that, because I can't help myself, it was a really interesting recruiting situation. He was not highly recruited, and he'll be the first one to admit it. And he was a New Hampshire kid, and he had come to our camp, and our coaches weren't yet sold on him. So we were probably looking at other guys in the country. And quite frankly, he just kept hounding me. And the thing that really sort of flipped the switch for me was he sent me a video of when he was 12 years old, and he was then considered one of the top 200 hockey players in North America. And you watch him skate, and I'm going to be dating myself, Jack, but you'll know the reference. Him going through these skating drills, he looked like Bobby Orr, effortless, athletic, amazing. And I said to myself, what the heck do we have here? And I said, Thor, so why did you give up hockey? He said, oh, coach, I got way too big.
Yeah, he looked like a really big Bobby Orr. Even at 12, he probably looked like a really big Bobby Orr, knowing his size now.
The second one he sent me was flash forward to his junior year in high school, and he's competing for the state heavyweight wrestling championship at 275 pounds. And he's going against a kid just as big as him, and he's just throwing him around the room like a rag doll. And I turned to my staff and I said, I don't know how good a football player this kid is, but he's gonna be someday, and the rest is history. It really is a cool story, unique.
Don't know how good he is at football, but you'll have the best hockey/wrestler on your D line that
There you go.
anybody has around it, right? Interesting observations. Alex, thanks. Kevin Stone wants to jump in here from the New England Football Journal. Kevin?
Yep, thanks, Jack. Coach, good to see you. How you doing?
Good, Kevin, and you.
Good, thank you. So the other day we were at Patriots training camp, and an old player from your team, Anthony Ferkser, has been making some noise, and I asked him about playing for you and how it prepared him, for his NFL career, and particularly with the Patriots. And he credited you really for preparing him well enough and having a disciplined program to give him a now 6 or 7 year career. When you hear that, and you hear old players that have been in the league kind of credit you and the program, what does that mean to you?
Well, what it means is we have class kids. If you're going to get to the NFL, it really has a lot to do with, what you're made of tangibly and intangibly. And it is interesting. I happen to coach the tight ends and H-backs, and we had Kyle Juszczyk and Anthony Ferkser in the same room. And we also had a couple other guys that all played in the NFL at the same time. And I'll just say it, those guys make you good coaches. They were all great athletes, even though they were not necessarily highly recruited. They had tremendous character. They were driven kids in the best possible context to reach their full potential. They dreamed big that they could get to that level. And yeah, Ferk, like so many, if not all of our players, are just unbelievably high character kids, the kind of kids you love to coach, the kind of kids that our players love to be around. And yeah, those guys make you good coaches.
Kevin, good. Thank you. And you're right, Coach. Looking at those guys over the years, they can make you good coaches very quickly, but I'm sure they also say you made them the players that they are. Jimmy Golan wants to jump in from the Associated Press. Hey, Jimmy.
If I could ask you to look at the big picture for a second. Robin referred at the beginning of the call to what's going on in college football. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on being in the Ivy League. I know you pushed out of it and some schools where their conferences have been shuffling. What it means to have the stability of the Ivy League and what you think is responsible for that.
Yeah, well, first of all, to the beginning of your point of what's going on in college football at the very highest level, the Mississippi coach, whose name escapes me right now, I think when someone put a microphone in his face, he nailed it. He just said, "Oh, it's professional football now, without any rules," and it is so far off the rails that we could spend 3 hours talking about it. Just mind-boggling what's going on, and I think the latest, the Pac-12 debacle. It's just a mess, and somehow we as coaches, we have to get it fixed. But the financial aspect of it is just taking it right off the rails to a point where if we were actually operating the way the NFL does, with the same salary cap, with where your draft choices come from, relating to where you finish up. It might be manageable, but the way it is right now, the rich are going to get richer. And, looking at schools like Stanford and Cal, schools with tremendous academic and athletic prowess and history, I'll tell you, it really leaves those folks out to dry. So really, really challenging in that respect, just one person's opinion.
And the Ivy League not having to deal with that, refreshing, reassuring.
Yeah, I think the reality is that, we're playing the game the way it was supposed to be played. That doesn't mean that NIL isn't going to affect us. That doesn't mean that we're not ever going to have kids transfer. But it is remarkable. In the 30 years I've been here, I think we've only had 3 kids transfer out of here, which is a statistical anomaly, to say the least. It's statistically impossible, but that speaks to what the Ivy League is all about. Being able to be a Division I athlete and get the arguably the absolute best education in the planet. So it hasn't affected us, but there will be a trickle down. The only variable is time.
Lastly, you mentioned Stanford, a school that would academically fit in with the Ivy League. Any desire to see the Ancient Nine, or?
I don't think that would be in the best interest of Stanford, in all honesty, when you consider the history. But we must make sure somehow that we don't just decimate and leave in our wake, schools with that great history, schools that are renowned across the globe, all of a sudden, with really no place to go. There's got to be a better way to do it. Our governor, who was a tremendous governor and a former Harvard basketball player, is now the head of the NCAA. If anyone can sort it out, he can. But I think the reality is that I think, unfortunately, the SEC figured out that the NCAA needs them more than they need the NCAA. And I think that's the conundrum.
Jimmy, thank you. And Coach, just echo real quick. I think, what's so most disturbing is you understand from a financial perspective, the school's saying, all right, we need to fund our departments. But I think what we've always seen, what distinguishes college football from everything else, especially the pros, and pros, great game, are traditions. And what you're seeing with this realignment is traditions just don't mean anything at all. I have a friend who played at the University of Maryland and said, my family used to be able to travel to every away game by car that I played. Now you have to figure out a way to get to the University of Minnesota, and it's even going to be farther to the West Coast, people you've never played before, you've got no connection with, and you just wonder about sacrificing traditions. When we stop doing it.
Yeah, and that's a great question to ask young people is, those things, though intangibles, are critically important. So I think it will get better, but it's never coming back to the way it was, which is such a shame.
Yeah, and need to get some become manageable. And I'm hoping that, as you said, Charlie Baker will be able to step in and do something with this. Last question we have, Zach McNichol is with us. Zach, jump in the conversation. Zach McKinnell, I'm sorry. Zach, jump in.
How you doing, Coach? My question is, you've coached around college football a long time. We just talked a little bit about realignment, but just looking scheme-wise, overall college football-wise, what's the biggest change that you've seen since year one for you up until now?
Well, I think if you look at the NFL as an example, it always used to be that college football was always sort of trying to figure out how they do it in the NFL. And then you would see those type of packages in college football. It's gone completely the other way now. If you look at the NFL, they're doing what colleges are doing. They're doing what college football was doing 10, 20 years ago. And when you look at the difference at the quarterback position in the NFL level, it's a reflection of what you've seen for a long time. Whether it's teams, back in the day where, the Texas teams maybe were running the triple option to, everybody trying to get a dual threat quarterback that can do everything. And I think the reality of that is that people have figured out that if you have a quarterback that is just a pocket quarterback, you can win a championship with them. You can win a Super Bowl with them. You can win a national championship. But boy, everybody else around them has to be so good. And therefore, but when you have a dual threat quarterback, a guy that really is athletic, the minute he gets past 1,001, 1,002, 1,003, it's a brand new play that you cannot really defend. It's a unique play every single time. And the sum total of that is we're all trying to get some version of, those two quarterbacks that played in the, Patrick Mahomes and the really outstanding Philadelphia Eagles quarterback. And I think that's what you're seeing. Like I said, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, but I think that's the way that most people are trying to get to if they have the luxury.
Coach, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Zach. Again, a reminder, opening game, as you mentioned, St. Thomas, a tough opener against Harvard at Harvard on Saturday, September 16th. So Jacob, Nate, thank you both for joining us. Coach, always a pleasure talking to you. Look forward to covering a couple of your games, especially when we get to the game, that little dust up we do at the end of the season every year. Good luck, gentlemen. Pleasure chatting with you, and we'll look forward to seeing you down the road. Coach, take care.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we're going to bring in the folks from Dartmouth. So we should have, let's check in on here. We'll have interim head coach Sammy McCorkle is going to be joining us. Also safety Quentin Arello and quarterback Nick Howard. So coach is there. Let's just hold on for 1 second till we get our other folks. Quentin is jumping on. And we should have Nick any moment now. And we have Nick also. All right. We have everybody. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Coach McCorkle, good to see you.
Jack, great to see you.
As always, Nick and Quentin, good to see you all. Let me start off with, and I'll get to this in 1 second, but Coach, what I've been doing with everybody, all the head coaches, is asking them to launch this conversation with a sense of, the season coming up, where you see its strengths, weaknesses. But I would be remiss, and I should tell you that every coach before us in this event has talked about they're offering their best wishes for Coach Stevens. Buddy, I mentioned, is a personal friend. So let me ask you if you could give us whatever you can in terms of an update on Coach Stevens and his circumstance.
Like many already know that, Coach Stevens, he is in Boston. He's surrounded by close friends and his family. And he's really working hard every single day to get better. And everybody that knows Coach Stevens, they know how tough he is. And, what we ask for, and it's been phenomenal, the support from individuals across the country. And every single one of the Ivy coaches have been reaching out and have been communicating and have been concerned. But we all know, as Coach T, we know he's a fighter, and he's going to continue to improve, and he's doing that on a daily basis.
I've said to Kirsten, his wife, and I texted with her and said, if anybody's going to do this, we know he's the guy that's going to do it. So, and I said to everybody, please send all of our best wishes to him and the family, obviously. So let's talk some upcoming football. So let me go back to that first question, which is, how are you seeing this upcoming season, and focusing a little bit on what you see the strengths of the team and some elements that you think the team's going to need to get better at?
Yeah, I think our guys realize from last season, that's below our expectations. That's below our bar. There was a lot of things that occurred last year that were in our control, and there was a lot of things that occurred that were out of our control. And I think the biggest thing that we focused in the spring, and we will continue to focus in preseason, is those things that were in, we lost a couple games in overtime last year. And we really took the time and effort to really go through and make sure we want to cover every base and see if we would have done this a little bit different. If we would have, made a different decision as coaches, would that have changed the outcome? So I think we're really stressing, and we did stress in the spring, we're going to stress this preseason. The things that we can control, we want to make sure we continue to work on that. So wherever in that situation, again, we're prepared. And then things that are out of our control, injuries, that occurs, that happens. And how are we going to adjust? And as Coach Stevens would always say, you want to adjust and improvise, A&I. How are we going to A&I? And I think that's going to be our biggest push as we continue to go forward. And also, I think we, with our team is just the sense of urgency. And I think our team has that, and attention to detail, doing all the little things right. And I think we realize how important those things are. That can be a big difference in a win or a loss. And that'll be our main focus going into preseason. We're super excited. We have, 7 returning offensive starters. At every position on our offense is a leading receiver, leading passer, leading rusher. 4 of our 5 offensive linemen returned from last year. Defensively, we have 4 returning starters on defense. Obviously, it's Shane Cokes moving on to Colorado is a big loss. But once again, we have our top 3 tacklers on our defense will be back. And we'll have much more experience this year than we had last year. We had about close to 72 guys who saw the field in some capacity last year. So to me, that is going to be the biggest difference from our team last year to this year, is just the experience. It's not going to be the first time they're in that situation. And we're super excited. And, we got a little ways to go for that first game. It's a big game. It's going to be against UNH, down there at UNH. They're a top 10 team. The last 2 years have been really good games between each other. And we're super excited, but we're not focused on that right now. We're focused on day one when we start this weekend and going forward and making sure every day that we leave that practice field, we've gotten better every single day.
Let me ask you from your personal perspective, becoming the interim head coach, and you've been there for a lot of years, worked with Buddy for a lot of years. And I've said this on the air. One of the things that has struck me often, and I think it has a significant impact on the success that you've all had at Dartmouth in the last 10, 15 years or so, is when you look at the coaching staff and you look at the longevity and the continuity, how long so many coaches are there. And I have some coaches that are I'm friends with that had been at Yale some long time back, and they've been now at Dartmouth for a long time. Talk about from a head coach perspective, especially a head coach who got thrust into a position in some extraordinarily difficult circumstances. Talk about the role that the longevity of coaching staff can play here.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, when the situation occurred, it just naturally happened. Everybody just took charge. Nobody kind of was, they all knew that, we had to band together, support each other. And you couldn't ask for a better staff. Like you said, this group has been together a long time. We speak the same language. Doesn't mean we always agree on everything, but we've worked together long enough that we know how to have a discussion, have a conversation. We know the common goal is to find the solution that's going to help us go forward. And but yeah, it's been great. And like I said, every individual that's part of this program that's been on the staff have done a phenomenal job just stepping up and taking charge.
Let me talk a little bit with some of the players here. Nick, I'll start with you if I can. A couple of years ago, I was there at one of the games when you could call it a bust out game for you. You played extraordinarily well. And coming into this season, you were part of that group that had some options. Do you go someplace else and play? Do you stay here and play? Tell us why you made the decision that you want to come back here and you wanted to lead this team another year.
Yeah, I mean, really, I was looking at it kind of from the bigger perspective of not just football, but where I want to be, who I want to be spending my time with. And ultimately, I decided that Hanover is home. Our coaching staff, my teammates, just the town itself, the college. I love it here, and I didn't want to give that up. There, like you said, there are opportunities. A lot of our guys did move on, and we're all wishing them the best. But I felt like I had some unfinished business here in Hanover, and I'm really looking forward for an opportunity to go out with Quentin, with our coaching staff, with the rest of our awesome teammates, and chase that dream.
Talk a little bit about going from last year's offense to this year's offense, right? What are you looking at in terms of, as the leader of that offense, as to what you need to do? Like, again, it was some tough losses last year, some uncharacteristic losses, but what are you viewing this upcoming season as what you need to do to get where you believe the Dartmouth offense should be?
I think one of the major factors overall is just our attitude as an offense. As Coach McCorkle kind of touched on earlier, we had a lot of new guys last year, a lot of young guys who hadn't played, trying to figure it out while they're on the field, the whole getting your feet wet. But we're hitting the ground running now. 4 of our 5 offensive linemen are coming back. We have a super experienced receiver core. All 3 of our older quarterbacks now have played. Just our tight ends were very deep, and some guys with a lot of experience. So across the board, I think the biggest thing is just shifting that attitude from I'm trying to figure this out, I don't want to mess up, into really just attacking every single snap. Just coming with a different type of mentality and an understanding that not only do I know what I'm doing, but I'm going to do it 100 miles an hour without fear of making mistakes. And I think that's going to really make a big difference in some of those, like we talked about, some of those situations that previously were unprecedented for us. And now, as we've been working it in practice and thrown in just all the other obstacles that we've had this offseason, I really think the distractions and the fearfulness is out of the way.
Let me talk about your development. So 2 years ago, as I said, you burst on the scene and you became part of this extraordinary two-headed quarterback position where, and I think I said this on the air, I never remember seeing it before, where you had guys who had just different skill sets, but complemented each other so well. And you had two guys sharing the position who were both all Ivy quarterbacks. It was an astonishing accomplishment, I think. And then all of a sudden now it's your show. Talk about the idea of how you, because you people would say you were the runner, but then we saw, and we said this again, we said this on the air as a compliment to you, saying, no, he's not just a runner. This guy can throw the ball. So talk about your development now and how you want to be seen and how you want to play this coming season.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, in 2021, we had a great system with Derek and I, super successful. And Derek has remained as one of the biggest mentors I've ever had in the game of football. Being able to lean on him in 21 really allowed me to grow as a person and as a player. And even to this day, I'm still in contact with him a lot, and he's still teaching me a lot of things. So I'm very thankful for that relationship. And, you know, as you said, I do feel very comfortable throwing the ball these days. We are constantly working, our offensive staff, particularly coach staff, and our offensive line coach, Coach Clark, on what's the right balance between throwing, running, making sure we're spreading the ball, getting touches to the guys who need the ball outside of myself. And I'm really excited looking forward to it this year. I feel like this is the best I've ever been, physically, emotionally, just the whole deal. So I think that also played into my decision in coming back, is just where I'm at right now. I feel leaps and bounds ahead of where I was in 21 and 22. So just really excited.
Yeah, well, I can tell we've still, and again, we've commented this on the air. We've talked about how you can see your development as a thrower here. But I will also say that there are still some times when you're carrying the ball and we'll say, yeah, no, he still looks like the linebacker he was when he got coming out of high school and recruited here. It's like, you know, there's that part of the linebacker mentality that says, yeah, I'm a quarterback, but I'm still going to run over you. You know, if you want to bring me down. And that's a compliment, by the way. From a former defensive back, and I've said this on the air, man, I don't want to see that guy coming down with a 10-yard head start, and I'm the last guy between him and the goal line. So all compliments for you.
Thank you, sir.
Quentin, let me ask you your perspective then from the defensive side of the ball. Again, Dartmouth has made a living with great defenses over the years. You know, it's one of the many things you point to when you talk about Dartmouth football. So give us your sense of this coming season and maybe even compared to last year, things where you're looking at it saying, all right, we got to get better at this, but here's where we think we're pretty strong. What do you think?
Yeah. So last year was not our expectation as a defense. There's no doubt about that. But as Nick and as our head coach, Sammy McCorkle have both stated, last year we played a little bit timid. So I think moving forward, the biggest change for our defense was playing with a lot more confidence. You know, last year we only returned 2, maybe 3 true starters on defense. This year returning 4, but the way I look at it, we're returning 7 or 8 because, you know, we have corner positions that, you know, unfortunately guys got injured, but, you know, underclassmen were able to step up and fill that role. Same thing with the tight end or our free safety position and both of our linebacker positions as well. So just that experience coming from last year and going into the spring ball created a lot of confidence that we otherwise did not have last year. So that's a huge difference. Obviously losing Shane Cokes in the pass and rush game is a huge loss, but, you know, I feel confident that we can bounce back from that. You know, losing Marcus White last year during the Yale game was a huge loss as well, but he's coming back. He's a force to be reckoned with. I'm super excited to see what he's going to be able to do. But I think the biggest difference is just the confidence. You know, I believe in the guys in front of me. And I'm just super excited to see what we can do this year.
And I haven't started practice yet, starting soon, but coming off of the spring, were there some things or players where you said, okay, this is going to help? This guy, somebody's got it. You don't even need specific names of some position guys where you said, this is going to help us get better from last year.
Yeah. So we have been very fortunate to have a very good D line in the past. There's no doubt about that. And so the young guys being able to step up this year and getting some playing time last year, that's what I'm super excited for. Because, you know, as a secondary position, having a good D line is phenomenal. It makes my job 10 times easier. So I'm super excited for that. But then also into the boundary on my side of the field, having a boundary corner that can really fit into the run game to complement our Mike linebacker, our inside linebacker, is just a huge benefit. Makes my job easier, makes the other team's job a lot more difficult. But just finding a good, tall, long boundary corner is something that I'm super excited for. And I think that we saw glimpses of that last year with Leo St. Gordon. You know, love him to death, super physical, super aggressive, and I'm super excited that he's going to be playing on my side of the ball this year.
Well, we're going to be looking forward to all of that. We got the ESPN crew is going to be coming up to Dartmouth for one of the games. And Nick, I echo what you say. I always come up a day or two earlier because it's just one of my favorite places to be up there. So we'll come up and visit all that. And a reminder, opens up, and Coach, you mentioned this, Dartmouth at New Hampshire, Saturday, September 16th. And it's one of those rivalries I am so glad as a football traditionalist that Dartmouth has maintained. Coach, you're old enough, not quite old enough as me, but you'll remember the old Yankee Conference where the Ivy schools used to open up with our in-state rival. Yale played UConn for 50 years, I think. And to see Dartmouth still playing New Hampshire, I think is a wonderful preservation of a great tradition. So good luck with that opening game. And to all of you, good luck with the season. We'll look forward to coming up and covering some of your games. All right, you all be well. Thank you.
Jack, and I just want to say a real quick
Yes,
shout out to wish Coach Bagg all the best as he moves on.
Yes.
We're going to miss him. He's a legend, and we'll miss him on the sideline.
He's been a great guy to know and a great guy to cover. And I think everybody shares that for Coach Bagnoli. Guys, thanks. Good luck. We'll look forward to seeing you all. Take care now.
Thank you.
All right, next, I'm going to grab the folks from Ithaca. The head coach, Cornell head coach David Archer is going to be with us, quarterback Jamison Wong, and linebacker Jake Stebbins. So let's see if we can get them all dialed in and here with us. Coach Archer, Coach, good to see you. Glad to have you here with us. Let's get some of your guys on board here. Looks like Jake is with us. All right, Jake, welcome to you. And we should have Jamison on with us any minute. We have Jamison joining us now also. All right, gentlemen, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on our football media day. Coach, always good to see you. We always have one of my favorite guys to have really interesting conversations with. It's always a pleasure. And Jake and Jamison, it's been a pleasure covering you guys for the last few years. So let's talk a little bit as we move forward now for the 2023 season. All right. And Coach, same question I've asked everybody so far, and we'll continue to ask, and that is to give us a sort of a state of the union from your perspective here, to give us your sense of this upcoming season. And focus a little bit about what you see as the strengths of this team coming in, maybe some of the things that the team is going to have to work on to get better at, and what your realistic expectations are for this season.
First, Jack, I say the same thing about you when people ask me. So it's one of the most interesting guys I can have a conversation with. So, but I just before I talk about my team, all thoughts and prayers to Buddy and Kirsten. I mean, you're talking about phenomenal human beings that just really care. Anytime I would have something happen with my family, Kirsten would reach out and see if we were okay. And they're just first class in everything. And I know Coach Stevens is in Boston, just doing everything he can. And we can't wait to get you back, Buddy. And then in a similar, but different type of wishes for Al, and a celebration of his great career. You're talking about two, legendary Ivy League football coaches, and what people don't see, or a perspective I could give you is, when I got this job at 30 years old, and you have people that have been multiple decades, Buddy Stevens, Al Bagnoli, Tim Murphy, Phil Estes, those guys were incredible to me. Like they cared about their program, no question, but they were so established. They knew like, hey, how do we raise Ivy League football? And Buddy and Al, I mean, they're at the forefront. We're at the forefront of that. Buddy will be backing it, and just incredible. Pick up the phone. Hey, what's your relationship with your friends group? Hey, how do you structure this? How do you? And those guys would always take my call and help. And so that's probably something people don't realize about the Ivy League, but particularly Buddy and Al. And like I said, Tim and Phil, they've been at it so long, and they were so gracious. Anything that made the quality of the entire league better, including those they were competing against. That's how much they cared about Ivy League football.
And that's something you said, and I'm not trying to diminish all the other leagues, but you're not going to see that everywhere, where the coaches, especially the established head coaches who are synonymous with the Ivy League, willing to take a 30-year-old, I'll call you a kid, all right, coming in and say, hey, it's our job. We'll help you. We're happy to help you because it makes you better, makes us better. The league doesn't mean we're not going to try and beat you when Saturday comes.
If I started
the kind of guys
or something, the conversation ended. You know what I mean?
Exactly. You want to reach across the field and say, hey, remember, I'm the guy you called up and give me some aid. Here's some aid. Let me beat you on Saturday. Let me get a little bit better here. But you're right. It's just a marvelous commentary on the quality and the traditions of this league and the quality of these coaches, certainly.
Without question. So I just want to say that. And then, all right, let's talk Cornell football for 2023. I think that last year, last year's team had an identity of overcoming adversity. Mm-hmm. And I think that this offseason, our returning players took another step in terms of leadership and identity building and saying, okay, this upcoming team, is really going to be one that relies upon their grit and their resilience. And so I think what Jake Stebbins was able to do last year, I think that, he's really kind of rallied a group of upperclassmen around him on both sides of the ball and said, okay, you know what, this is how we're going to function. This is how we're going to do things. This is how we're going to play. And so I'm excited to see what that translates to every day. My expectations for the year, I have no idea. What I expect us to go out there and be gritty and practice hard and play hard and be connected and care about one another and have a great time doing it. And the scoreboard will be what the scoreboard will be. But the actual process of doing that's what I'm looking forward to. And these kids are really fun to coach, this group in particular. And so I'm expecting to have a really great season with them.
Looking at last year, 5-5 season. Some of the games, my guess you would say is that record could have been better. A little bit something here, a little bit something there. Were your expectations? And again, look, head coaches, their expectations is quite literally let's start off with winning every game. Let's win a championship. It's not always the case. But looking at your expectations last year, resulted in a 5-5 season, and comparing to the expectations this year, and I'm not asking you to put a number on wins, losses, but the notion of getting better. How do you see this team?
I think this team has a chance. We got to go out there and perform it every day. But when you look at the age, the experience, the strength of each player, each side of the ball, different position groups, you look at it and you say, okay, there's a formula here, right? It's not like a year where you're going to have to rely upon a ton of younger players or inexperienced players or things of that nature, changes in schematics, none of that occurring at a high level. So you'd say, okay, we can build on, what happened last year. But the real truth is it's a brand new year. And while momentum exists, what really counts is what are we going to do when we show up Wednesday afternoon for practice number 1? Right? Nobody's going to look at the paper from last season and say, okay, fellas, look at our experience. No. What are we going to do? Who's going to show up? Is every kid going to show up authentically them to get after it at Wednesday's practice? Boom. That's it. And then when that's over, let's talk about Thursday.
Leads me into conversations with Jameson and Jake. And Jameson, let me start with you if I can. your emergence. Let's talk about your emergence. So 2 years ago, I think we were covering ESPN, the game where it was your first sort of jump on the field as a true first year and establishing yourself, and people saying, quite honestly, and in the booth saying, wow, that guy's got some skills. He can do some things. Last year, you had the full year under your belt. Coming into this year now, what are you looking to? Let's start with personal, and then I'll get to the team concepts. But what are you looking to in terms of your evolution as a quarterback here and running the Cornell offense?
I just want to first off by saying, like, my teammates and my coaches really make me look good. My teammates, they always do their best job, putting me in the best position to perform. And then my coaches, just listening to what they have to say to me, and then just really listening to and doing what they tell me to do. And without them, I wouldn't be the player or quarterback I am today. And I just want to first off by saying that. But to answer your question, for me personally, I just want to be the best leader I could be for this team. Whether it's on the offensive side of the ball or even defense as well. But just being a guy that everyone can come to and look for leadership. But as a player, just go out there and do my job to the best of my ability, and just trust everything that's happening around me, whether trusting my teammates, trusting my coaches, trusting the game plan, and then just executing that to the best of my ability.
Look at your impressive statistics from last year. Led the league in total touchdowns, 22 of them, 14 passing, 8 of them on the ground. So once again, highlighting that these multiple skill sets that we've talked about here. But if you wanted to point to one aspect of your game that you've been working on improving and want to get better at for this upcoming season, what would it be?
I really think that I really worked hard this spring in just my drop back passing game. I know I can run the ball. I know I can extend plays, but if I could become a little more comfortable in the pocket and just reading the field down in the pocket, I think it'll take my game to the next level. But besides that, just trying to get better every single day, just take it day by day, just trying to get 1% better. And whether that's stretching, my hydration, like just really treating this like it's my job now, and just trying to be the best quarterback and best leader for this team as possible.
Yeah. Jake, let me come to you if I can. And I know that there are a lot of Ivy League fans out there that are saying, oh man, that guy's back for another year. It just had a fabulous career on the field, off the field. I should mention that, one of the people involved in the National Football Foundation and the Hall of Fame Scholar Athlete considerations. I think I'm right. Perfect 4.0 for all of these years and an unbelievable number of tackles. So Cornell folks are delighted you're coming back. They wish they'd get you for another year. The rest of them are saying, boy, we'd like to wish Jake good luck whenever he leaves here. So with that compliment as a backdrop, let's talk a little bit about now the defense, right? Where you were last year defensively and where you think going through the spring and about to start the preseason practice, where you think this defense can be once the first game comes around.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jack. Really appreciate that. I'm honestly so excited to be back. I couldn't imagine being anywhere else right now. So I'm really looking forward to this year and everything we have in store. Now for the defense, I think last year, from a defense perspective, from a team perspective, we made strides, we made improvements, but obviously there was still a lot of things that were lacking. One thing that we always try to pride ourselves on is swarm, effort, and then physicality. And like I was saying, I think we made some strides there, but there's still a lot of room for improvement. So I think that's something that we're focusing on every day. Going into camp here, we're focusing on our swarm, our effort, giving max effort in everything we do. And then just physicality, making sure that you played Cornell when you play us. So just stuff like that. It's really still about the fundamentals and everything you do. Just making sure you're good at the basics, but you're not just good. You're the best. Make sure we're the best at the basics. I think that's what we have at the forefront of our mind going into this year.
Again, having covered a number of your games over the last few years, you guys are physical, and you are. People are going to know at the end. We just played a Cornell defense. Let me get your scouting report on the Cornell offense, right? So if you're putting together a scouting report and you're across the line from these guys day in, day out, but if you're going to put together a scouting report on your own offense, what are you pointing to in terms of the strengths of the team this year?
I think the strength that I would point to in our offense is that you can't point to a strength in our offense. There's a lot that you have to cover. There's a lot of big boys up front that are coming back. They really know how to play football and how to mash physically. I think we improve each other each day of practice because it's always a physical matchup between the defensive front and the offensive front every day. I think those guys are really well developed and they know what they're doing. As you were talking about earlier, having that dual threat quarterback like Jameson, guys that you don't know what's going to happen any given play. You really can't scheme for it, and I think that's a huge thing. We have guys that we can run behind. We have guys that can throw it, guys we can throw it to. I think that's our biggest strength is that there isn't one strength. We can really do it all.
That's interesting. And as a former defensive player, and being in that situation where you think you've got one play in front of you diagnosed and defended, and then all of a sudden you have somebody like Jameson breaks out, and all of a sudden this is a different play. This is nothing to do with what you had prepared for and what you thought you had wrapped up. And that's certainly a great ability to bring to an offense. Let me bring in Zach McKinnell is with us still from Blue Bloods, and he has a question. He wants to join in the conversation. Zach, jump in.
How you doing, Coach? I appreciate you joining us today. My first question is, you talked about your team taking that next step last year and even taking another one this year. What's one aspect on each side of the ball that you have really focused on this offseason with that particular thing taking that next step for your team?
Yeah, I can talk about the defensive side a little bit. But I just know we talked about, like I was talking about the fundamentals, knowing what we're doing in every play, every situation. We have a lot going on defense, just making sure that everyone's in the right spot and doing exactly what we're supposed to do. Something that we've really focused on in the offseason and in the spring too.
And Coach, you can jump in also on that question I think that Zach had.
Oh, yeah. So, taking a look at the cutoffs from last year and then focusing on what to do, with the spring, I think the first thing we got to do on special teams is we got to be able to punt the football with consistency and protect the punter with consistency. The next thing I think on special teams is I think we have some guys that can really do some game-breaking stuff in the return game. And okay, what can we do this year to really enhance or feature them? On offense, there's some run game, established run game that we've tried to lay the foundation work for, and what are the complements off of that? Whether that means that's a play action, a move the pocket, or a run check off of that. So kind of different curveballs to a fastball type of thing. And then defensively, we had 5 victories last year. Every single one of them ended with the defense defending a 2-minute situation. And 40% of the games last season in college football as a whole were 1-score games. And so looking at the type of things we want to do to make sure we're not predictable in a 2-minute setting on defense, but also then that lends to, looking at it offensively too, are some of the things we've looked at on the 3 sides of the ball.
And then my final question, Coach, looking throughout spring and even getting into fall camp, has there been a position group this offseason that has caught your eye that seems to taking their game to the next level?
We'll see, with fall camp, but when I look at the roster and I look at the linebacker room, it just looks like a really deep, talented, experienced room, which can be just pays huge dividends, not only with what type of different multiple personnel packages you can use defensively, but also those body types and those players become big time special teams contributors. And so if you want to try to feature a return man and get more out of your return game, you got to have guys that can run and protect and block and hit in space. And linebackers are great for that. So I just kind of off the, before practice 1, if I had to point to one group, the linebackers seem deep and they seem talented.
Appreciate you, Coach.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. Coach, let me ask you a question here before we let you go. We will, part of the ESPN package, we're going to get your game at Harvard on Friday, October 6th, I believe it is. I think the last 2 years we've been up at Ithaca, which is always a great, I've always loved Ithaca. So this one is going to be an away game for you. But give me your thoughts on what this national exposure. It's a Friday night game, so you're not competing with everybody else who's in the mix on Saturday games. It's a Friday night game. ESPN has loved the Ivy games. They give it great promotion. They provide great crews to cover these games. Just exceptional professionals doing this. Talk about the impact that this national exposure can have on your recruiting and on your current players. The notion that, hey, this is Friday Night Lights, but this is big time. That's not in their local town. This is Friday Night Lights nationally here.
You know, honestly, Jack, whether it's the featured game of the week or it's on ESPN Plus, I think the exposure has just been nothing but positive and nothing but growing, no matter who's watching it, including chairman of ESPN, Jimmy Pitaro. He came by practice last year, okay, and literally looked at me and was like, hey, man, I watch all your games on that ESPN Plus thing. And I was like, that's your company. Like, you know, like, this is the head of it. Like, it's just something that has such an amazing reach. It's been able to grow Ivy League football. It's been able to showcase the talent of these kids, the character of these kids. So whether it's the Friday night game or whether it's, you know, the ESPN Plus on Saturday, I just think it's been a phenomenal relationship. And you know, the Friday night game, the only difference is you kind of got to, you know, change your practice week and change your practice plans. But I think the relationship with ESPN has been one of a really positive game changer for Ivy football.
Yeah, I agree. I can't tell you how many times I've had the ESPN folks say to me, hey, we watched, you know, whatever game it was that you all were doing this week. And their comment, I love it. They said, that was a great game and some really great talent. And then they say, and I'm not talking about just a great game for an Ivy football game. They're saying that was a great college football game. And I think what we've been able to capture is what, you know, Coach, you and I know this, having played in this league, and now you're coaching in this league, is there's some really talented football players on these 8 teams. And to get people to be able to see that now, how good they are, and to see ESPN embracing it, I think has been a marvelous thing for the league.
I agree. Totally agree.
Well, guys, I want to thank you for spending some time. Coach, it's always good to chat with you. I said before, I look forward to catching up with you during the season. Jameson, Jake, both of you, congratulations on what you've done so far, and on looking forward to this season here and what's going to happen for Cornell football. So you all be well. We'll look forward to seeing you down the road. Take care now.
Thanks, Jack.
All right.
Thanks, Jack.
Take care.
Thanks, Jack.
All right, so coming up next, we have the folks from Columbia who are about to join us. So let's see if we can get everybody dialed in here. We're going to have interim head coach Mark Fabish going to be with us, wide receiver Marcus Libman, and defensive back Seth Parker. So let's see if we can get everybody connected here. We can continue our conversation. Just once again, a reminder for the media folks out there, if you know, use the raised hand function, and we'll get you into the conversation with everybody. All right, we've got Coach here, we've got Marcus here, and we should have, and then we have Seth joining us also. All right, gentlemen, we have everybody here. Welcome all of you to the 2023 Ivy Football Media Day. As I said, interim head coach Mark Fabish. Also, we have wide receiver Marcus Libman and defensive back Seth Parker. So welcome to all of you. Coach, I'm going to start with you, if I can, and I'll ask you to give the kind of, I've been calling it the State of the Union address about Columbia moving forward, but I do want to start off with the retirement of Coach Al Bagnoli. I am very, very pleased to call him a personal friend. I tell the story often that and Mark, you might remember this, when he retired from Penn, and we honored him at our Ivy Football Association dinner that we do every 2 years. And, you know, we get 1,000 former players, maybe more, show up there. And we talked about, and what I had said, and I've mentioned this before, I'm the vice chair of the National Football Foundation College Hall of Fame. I don't have a Hall of Fame vote, but I'm there. And I said, my sense is when it's time, when he's retiring, he's going to become a college football Hall of Famer. And then within months, he's back and he's running the program at Columbia. And Al did what Al does, and he brought that program back. He resurrected that program at Columbia, and he's done a lot of great things. And he decided for health reasons. Unfortunately, we're told he's good, but he's decided for health reasons at 70 was the time to step away. give me your sense, and you've been with him for a while here, but give me your sense quickly of him as a coach, as a leader, as a human being.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, Jack, thanks so much for hosting, and I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you. This has been a fun couple hours. I love Ivy League football, love everything about it, and I benefit this year from the alphabet being flipped and starting with the Y, and I get to hear all the coaches and all the other players answer the questions. So I talked to Seth and Marcus a little bit earlier, and I told them, log on so you guys can get the answers to the questions before the test.
Good coaches know to learn from others. Right?
Exactly. And so I'm thrilled to be here, and would be remiss to not, before talking about Coach Bagnoli and what he's done for me, is to just wish nothing but the best to Coach Stevens on his road to recovery. Such a pioneer, forward thinking, and a first-class competitor. And so you knew that no matter what the records were, whenever you played Dartmouth, that you'd have to strap it up, and it was just going to be a well-coached football team that we were lining up against. And wish him nothing but the best. And I know you've alluded to it, that if there's anybody that can come back from this thing, it is Coach Stevens. And so send from everyone associated with Columbia football, sending Coach nothing but the best. And then, to answer your question about Coach Bagnoli, I had the privilege of playing for him. I was part of his first recruiting class at Penn from 93 to 1996. And then, just a little bit of a testament to who he is as a leader of a program and leader of a staff, was I got into coaching soon thereafter and wanted nothing more than to go back to my alma mater as a coach. And the problem was that no one ever left. The staff was always intact. And it wasn't until 2009 that there was an opening, that there was an opportunity that I could go back. And ever since then have been along by his side, and have been witness to how he runs this thing. And we talk about the trajectory that he set this program in. And we took over a program in 2015 that hadn't had a lot of success. And you look at the last 5 years, and within the league, Princeton, Dartmouth, Yale, Columbia, those are the top 4 teams in wins. 4 of the last 5 seasons, we've had winning seasons. Only 3 Ivy League teams have done that: Princeton, Dartmouth, and Columbia. And so we're going in a good direction, and we want to keep that direction going. And that direction was set in place by Coach Bagnoli and his blueprint. And so we're going to follow it. We're going to work hard. And as I mentioned on a press conference the other day, our results are going to be a byproduct of the work that we do. And that's going to be hard work. We're going to come to practice every day. We're going to compete. Some of the players have alluded to it on this Zoom of iron sharpens iron. We're no different. We're going to compete against each other and push each other to be the best versions of ourselves for the 10 Saturdays where we have opportunities to play against somebody in a different color jersey.
Yeah. And I think that's a marvelous testimonial for Coach and what he's done. Interesting. I think also a testimonial about the University of Pennsylvania, that people who were coaching there didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
They're like, why would you? It's this great institution. I'm working for a great guy. I'm not going anywhere. But I'm sure he'd be the first one to say he was delighted to be able to bring you back into the fold, if you will, and position you for this.
I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Good. So let's talk about this upcoming season, right?
Sure.
And how you would characterize this. Focus a little bit on what you think the strengths of the team will be coming into the season, what you think they need to get better at to get where you want to be for this season.
Sure. Well, the strength of our team lies in our people. I think that's something that I truly believe in, and that people, meaning our players and our staff. The timing of this transition is what it is, and with 2 weeks to go, we had to get ready. And I've been fortunate to be able to lean on a phenomenal coaching staff in that preparation, and that's our assistant head coach John McLaughlin, our defensive coordinator Justin Stovall, our new offensive coordinator, Joe D'Orazio, special teams coordinator, Paul Rice. And then, our players have been phenomenal. And so that's the strength of our team, is our people. You can look at statistics at what's coming back, and what holes maybe we need to fill. We're going to find out a lot about that in the next couple of days when practice starts. I know this, our guys love each other, our guys care about each other, and our guys are going to work hard for each other. They are going to give everything they have for the guy sitting in the locker room next to them. And as long as that is consistent throughout, as long as we're aligned in our core values, we'll have a shot. We'll have a shot on those 10 Saturdays. If you want specific answers to your question, Jack, we got 2 quarterbacks that won 3 games last year as starters for us. Not a lot of people in the league can say that. We've got all conference players returning at skill positions. Our starting tight end is moving to offensive line. He's a big son of a gun that's going to do some really good things for us. And our defense plays their tails off for each other. And so we're going to build on those strengths and see where it takes us.
You mentioned the notion of let's call it luxury, because I think it is, of 2 quarterbacks who have won 3 games each there. Oftentimes, people will bemoan if you lose a quarterback, if you don't have the quality depth. You've heard people say that if you don't have a single quarterback, as opposed to a grouping of quarterbacks, that can be a detriment for you. But having watched both of these guys play last year, they each bring skills and talents. Give me a sense of the quarterbacks that we may well be seeing in this upcoming season.
Yeah, well, Joe Green, who was Ivy League Rookie of the Year in 2021, led us to a 7-3 record that season. Was the incumbent starter last year and came back and was 3-2 going into we were 3-2 going into the Penn game, and his shoulder was acting up. We ended up making a change at halftime. And the beauty of the situation was that Caden Bell, who took over in that role, prepared every day like he was the starter. And so that when he came in, we didn't skip a beat. And the guys rallied around him. His first 2 starts didn't go as we had hoped, but in typical Columbia fashion, we moved forward and we got better. And we found ways over the next 3 weeks, Harvard, Brown, and Cornell, to come up on the proper side of the ledger from our perspective. And so Caden and Joe both deserve the opportunity to earn that spot. And it is, like you mentioned, it's a luxury, but it's going to be something that I look forward to the competition come 4 days from now, 5 days from now, when we ultimately get to go back out there. Competition is good, but competition isn't always offense against defense. It's within our own position groups. And that's something that's going to be exciting to see. And we talk all the time about great teams have great teammates, and I love how they support each other. And we just their friendship and their camaraderie is tremendous. And I look forward to seeing that to continue to grow, regardless of who lines up under center against Lafayette.
That's a great expression that works for everything in life, that great teams have great teammates.
Yes, sir.
And if guys come away from the program with that in mind, they're clearly going to be successful. How about on the defensive side of the ball? Columbia's had the great benefit of some really good playmakers over the last years. Guys who, not just first team All Ivy players, but guys who you could count on to make plays.
Yeah.
Talk about the defense this season.
Well, I think, and a perfect example of what you're talking about, Jack, we played a great game against Dartmouth, and unfortunately, when the clock hit 0, they had a couple more points than us. But key situation, we needed to play, and sophomore defense lineman at the time, Justin Townsend, ran down their quarterback, caused a sack fumble, gave us the ball back, and gave us the opportunity to win the football game. And Justin's back for his junior year, and I think he is. And any number of guys, whether it be Justin and Pat Passalacqua and Ben Corniello up front, Anthony Russo, CJ Brown on the second level. We're going to have an opportunity to listen to Seth here, but Seth in the back end with Aaron Brebner and a couple of guys like that. Our core values are effort, accountability, team, and effort is 6 seconds all out every time. And that's what our defense does. Coach Stovall gets our guys to play, and you don't know when it's going to be you. Before that play, Justin Townsend didn't know, but he played his butt off for 6 seconds. And when the opportunity arose, he made the play. And it's a testament to our coaches, but it's also a testament to the buy-in of our guys and how much they believe in each other and believe in what we're speaking with them about on a daily basis.
Let me bring Marcus and Seth into the conversation. Then Marcus, let me start with you. And first observation is you got the best backdrop going right now for anybody that we've had on this conversation. We got a serious Columbia Lion there behind you.
Yes,
so
sir.
you're gonna get some points for doing some staging here to get the best looking backdrop for this conversation.
Appreciate that.
Let's talk some. Ask you to elaborate a little bit on what Coach was talking about in terms of the offense here, and let's focus on the quarterback position. Obviously, you need somebody to get you the ball, and in watching the two quarterbacks last year, you saw some different skills, some similar skills. You didn't see a drop off when you went to the number 2 guy that sometimes you see, where sometimes the number 2 guy takes the field and what you're saying is, okay, well, I know he's trying hard, but I see why he's in the number 2. And covering the team, you didn't see that. So differences, different skills. So coming into this season, what's your expectation of the production that you think you can get out of that quarterback position, regardless of who's there?
Yeah, absolutely. Like Coach Fabish said, is they're both talented guys. And I think the best part for us in this offense is coming in these 4 days and at this camp, we're just going to compete and we're just going to have fun. Both these guys compete so hard. They have great attitudes and they're both leaders and everybody respects them. And even like what he said, like Joe's a phenomenal quarterback, but Caden's just been working as hard as he's been a starter throughout the whole season. So, and I think even when Caden came into the game, everybody on the team nobody was worried. Everybody, like, when you get that second string quarterback coming in, everybody's like, oh, like, all right, here we go. But no, nobody's worried about Caden. He brings the attitude, he brings the energy. Joe's one of our leaders on the team. He's a captain. Everybody looks up to him. So I think it's just going to be a lot of fun in camp, especially for myself and the receivers as well as just they're going to want to compete. They're going to want to throw the ball down the field and we're going to have some fun for sure.
It's funny, you've watched Columbia over the years. I was like, I could go back to my era when I was playing, but it always looked like if you're a wide receiver, Columbia was a fun place to play. There were going to be balls in the air, and you're going to get a chance to look good week in and week out with that kind of offense. That you anticipate this year also?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We got a new OC, Coach D'Orazio, and we've got all the trust and all the confidence into him. And even with Coach Fabish there's no drop off at all. Coach Magnolia was a legendary coach, and having him on the sideline and just helping us out as well would be awesome. But yeah, we're excited. Coach D'Orazio has a ton of knowledge. He graduated from an Ivy League school as well. And yeah, we just expect to throw the ball down the field. Our flight crew is what we call ourselves for our wide receivers, and just our running backs, our tight ends, our O-line, everybody's experienced. So we're ready to have some fun and do some damage for sure.
Yeah. And Seth, let's talk about the other side of the ball. All right. Coming into this season and looking back on last season was a good year, 6-4. There most colleges out there would say, man, I'd love to be 6-4. Columbia was 6-4 with a whole series of injuries during the course of the season. So it's not as if, somebody threw a shutout against you guys all last season. So they had success. Coming into this season, looking at how the defense played last year, what are you envisioning that the defense needs to do maybe better than they did last year to be where you want them to be?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's a culture thing on our side of the ball, on the defensive side of the ball. Day in and day out, we're never satisfied. It's a saying that Coach Stovall has is a reflection of what we do shows how we're committed to the process, essentially. And so day in and day out, we're committed to putting in that 1%, getting 1% better each day. And then in regards to last season, I believe that execution is key. We have a lot of talent that was displayed last season, but an essential part of growing and getting better is executing each play, formations, play recognition. So integrating that, I believe, will take us to the next level in regards to the run game, pass game, and everything in between.
Let me ask you to do something that I've asked some of the other defensive players to do, and that is to give us a scouting report on your own offense, right? So if you're looking at the Columbia offense and you're saying, in order to stop these guys, in order to beat these guys, here's what we have to do or what we have to take away from them, what would your assessment be?
Of course, we get the luxury of having a great offense, very talented players, both in the run and pass game. So it's great. The saying iron sharpens iron that everybody has alluded to. But one thing that I think stands out is obviously our air attack. So being a DB, I have firsthand exposure to that. So getting the exposure to that in practice, seeing that if we can manage that, I think we have an edge going into the weekend, going into the game. So that's a luxury that we have in practice. And we have great outside receivers, slot receivers. So getting that in practice battles definitely gets us an edge going into, like I said, the weekend and whatever opponent we have that week.
Right. Marcus, let me come back to you and ask you the same question. Right. So your scouting report that you would put together for the Columbia defense, and you'd say, all right, here's how they're going to be hard to attack. What would you point to?
Yeah, well, like Coach Fabish also said, is they work so well together and their community so strong. I think Seth is a great leader, obviously, on the backfield in the secondary position. He just gets everybody going. Everybody's so experienced and they're well coached. And I think everybody's just motivated. Playing in New York City, in the middle of New York City, it's a dream. And we're motivated every day to come to practice, to have fun and just play together and compete every single day at camp or whatever. And that will bring us to Saturdays and play hard. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Coach, let's start from you if I can. It's something that I have asked some of the other coaches, and you're a guy who has the perspective of having played in this league, having coached at various places in this league. And as we mentioned in the introduction, we're delighted that we're continuing the partnership, the Ivy League with ESPN, 6 primetime games, nationally televised games. Most of them are Friday nights that gives us essentially, we've got the real estate almost to ourselves on Friday nights.
Sure.
So from your perspective, then talk about and I think we've got you guys, the first game of the package, as a matter of fact,
At Princeton, yes, sir.
down at Princeton. So talk from your perspective as a coach, the value of the national exposure for the Columbia program.
Well, all these schools, you look at our rosters, they're littered with student athletes from all across the country. And so it makes us tangible to them in the recruiting process, that they get a firsthand look. And you've alluded to it a few times in these conversations, Jack, of the quality of the product that shows up on those Friday nights. And so I think it shows guys that this is legit. And not only is it legit, but I can play on ESPN and get an Ivy League degree. And it just makes it so much more, I think it, for lack of a better term, makes it tangible to them. And it's great exposure. We've had the opportunity to play last year. We played the league champion Yale, and we hung for the first half. And the year before that, we went to the defending champ and played at Dartmouth and performed well that night. And now we're going down to Princeton, and it's going to be a great start to our season. We have two great opponents leading up to it, but it's going to be a phenomenal barometer for where the program is at. And there's no better place to do it than on national TV.
And I'll share with you the notion of just we're a visual society, right?
Sure.
Everything we do or think is someplace. And the visual impact, I've said, when we've done games from Columbia, and you've got the Hudson River as your backdrop there, and you have now, how the facilities and how they've been so dramatically improved in the stadium and Kraft Field, and then you show that just down the road is Wall Street and the opportunities, even if it's not finance in anything, that are the opportunities that are there. Yeah. For people who decide, I'm gonna play my football at Columbia. It's and I don't mean to be beating the ESPN drum, but I guess I kind of am. That I would think from a coaching perspective, it's like this is an invaluable tool to show, hey, look at who we are, right?
No doubt about it.
And look at the rest of these 8 Ivy League institutions. Look at who we are, and say then, why wouldn't you want to come play football here, right?
No doubt. And the great part about the Friday night games too is the Visual Society. Coach Taylor, our receivers coach, picks out our uniforms for all the games. It's always saves a good one. He saves a good one for the ESPN games.
We've mentioned that.
See what he breaks out for the Princeton one.
What are they coming out with tonight, right?
Yes, exactly.
To take advantage of this. Again, one of the things of people call it the fashion capital of the world. Well,
that's it. Greatest city on earth, Jack.
Indeed. All right. Hey, Coach, it's a pleasure talking to you. And again, give my best to Al.
I will
And
for
tell him
sure.
we'll miss him. I'm sure we will see him there. And Marcus and Seth, it's nice meeting you two and having conversations with you. So good luck to all of you down the road, and we'll see you at that game, that opening game for the ESPN package down at Princeton. Right?
Yes, sir.
Everybody be well.
Appreciate all
Thank
you
you.
do for the league, Jack. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you,
Marcus.
sir.
Take care now.
All right, let's go.
All right. Our thanks to the folks from Columbia, and we're going to finish up now with all the folks from Brown University. As I said, we flipped this around alphabetically. They're used to getting a chance to come right out of the blocks. This time they had to hang around a little bit. Coach James Perry joining us right now. I think James is there, and we're waiting then for wide receiver Wes Rocket, quarterback Jake Wilcox. So Jake is with us. Wes should be, and let's see. And we got Wes also. All right. So, gentlemen, welcome to all of you, and thanks so much for joining us here. As we said, the 2023 Ivy League Football Media Day. It's a great opportunity for us to talk with all of you and for the journalists to join in on all of this. So, thank you. So, Coach, it was good to see you. Get caught up with things. I'll ask you to do the same thing that I've asked each of the others before you, and to give us your sort of State of the Union address leading into the season, how you're seeing this upcoming season, and maybe a little bit of an emphasis on what do you see as the strengths of the team and things that you need to be developing to get where you want to be.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Jack, and we got two great ones here, representatives for the league, and Jake and Wes. Before I start, I did want to say that everybody at Brown, especially me, is, we're thinking about Buddy Stevens and wishing him and his family a quick recovery. He's meant a ton to the league and me personally, both QBs in the league and then what he's done for so many different people. So thinking about him from that perspective, and so the whole program is. And then similarly with Al. His retirement, I just wanted to say how much respect that I have for him. Listening to Mark, I was in the league as a player with some of that. He had that thing rolling early, and he's just been a terrific influence on so many different players, a good role model for all of us in the changing landscape of college athletics. That's how you do things right over a very, very long period of time. So congrats to him, and thinking about Buddy. As far as 23 goes here at Brown, this is my favorite time of year. We've done a couple of things recently, whether it's cookouts at your house with guys who are here this summer, or with the staff, and everyone's just counting it down till Thursday when we get together. And it's especially so at Brown in 23 because we've built this roster clawing and fighting to a really healthy depth. I'm really proud of the kids. They've stuck together very, very well. This is two great examples of it, but we got a very deep senior group who have handled the rigor that we attack football here at Brown very, very well, fed off it, and I think positioned themselves to have a great year. And this is a junior and senior league. It always has been. And you can see it. You can see it in the way we practiced last spring. You can see it in the way that these kids attack the summer. So we'll do our best to keep that momentum going and put our best foot forward in 2023. And I'm thrilled to be leading it.
Yeah. Let me come back to something you just mentioned, because it's something that I've always observed, and I'm curious as to about why it is. And you talked about how the Ivy League is essentially a junior and senior league that bring in kids and develop them. Not that they weren't talented to start with, right? But, and some of them will burst on a scene very quickly. But you've seen historically great success for kids when they get to their junior and senior season. Why do you think it is? What is it about the league? What is it about the players that come here, the coaches, where that kind of patience, and patience is short supply in the world of college athletics nowadays. It's how many times we see somebody, if they're not starting right away, they're someplace else. What do you think it is about the Ivy League, our schools, our coaches, that creates this kind of environment, this nurturing, developing environment?
Yeah, well, I think we do it right. I think other people honestly should be, they're looking for quick fixes, transfers. There's lunacy going on nationally right now as it pertains to some of that. And this league has always done it right. He's always put the student athlete first, his interests first, make him the best ball player you can be while still being a student, right? Making sure that in the recruiting process, you're recruiting guys that you know are going to be four-year players. As a former coach of a scholarship school, you know, the money goes out, the money comes in. So it is a little less skin off your back when that happens, where we're all building players properly, making sure that they have the tools that they can be the best players that they can be. And having done this a couple times, whether it's at Brown as an assistant or working for Bob at Princeton as an assistant, I really believe that this is the right way to do it. I mean, you should be developing players over time, recruiting players that are going to buy into that, and getting a 4-year experience here at Brown is second to none. So every time I recruit a guy, I say that. And then when I look at two kids who are on the call with me today, I'm just really proud of them.
Looking back from when you took over the program, and I think you and I had this conversation leading up to that in that first season, and clearly one of the goals was to get more players into the system. You know, people often talk about, oh, what kind of depth do you have? And the reality is, coaches will say that's not the term. What kind of quality depth do you have? The guys who can step in and you really don't miss a beat. Where do you think you have gotten to in terms of the development of the Brown program with building up that not only quality first liners, but quality depth who have the ability to step up and become a first liner?
Yeah, well, we'll see in 23. We'll see. That's what we're working on. You know, one thing for me is as we were building the depth, they were great kids. So we always had Brown football players. But it was wild to see 87 of them, you know, and disappointing because I love the school. I love the Brown football experience, but they were awesome. And, you know, I pushed them and the staff pushed them as hard as anybody else, and they ate it up. But now football is football. When you have 110 guys, you can create competition in ways that you just can't with 87. They're just literally impossible, right? So as we attack August, we're going to be able to have wideouts competing for positions in a way that is much healthier, having defensive backs doing the same thing. So then when they take the field, it's a lot easier to get better. It's more fair to the kid, to be honest, Jack. So we'll be pushing them. We always did, but it's a, you know, more productive way to attack training camp when you full steam ahead with 110 than where we were a couple of years ago.
Let me bring Wes and Jake into the conversations here. And Wes, I'll start with you. And I got to tell you, you know, I've had the great privilege of, in addition to my day job of doing television news, of being able to call these Ivy League football games for so many years, and especially since ESPN took it over. And I was looking at the guests coming on for this thing, and my first reaction was kind of honestly, West Rocket's still there. It's because it's like I can go back. It seems like years where I was saying, all right, that was a great catch by Brown's West Rocket here coming up. And I thought, I wonder if he's going to leave at any point in time, or if he's just having too much fun to go anywhere. So using that as a little bit of a backdrop and the tenure of Coach Perry, give me your sense as a player as to where you see this program now as compared to when you first came to Brown.
Yeah, first things first, I don't want to leave. Obviously that's why I'm here, right?
Yeah.
They can't drive me away.
But I'm 50 years since I last played, and I'm saying, I said to Coach Vino, I might have some eligibility left. Can I come back and do something here? Right? Why would you want to leave? Look at the backdrop where you are. Why would you want to leave that place?
Totally. I agree. But in terms of where we're at as a program, I think what you guys were just touching on, like depth, that's huge. Obviously 120 guys, competition is at its peak, but also just we've had, since I've been here, 5 years now, to really set in stone this culture of play fast, get bigger, faster, stronger. And so I think that culture just being really very ingrained into each guy, and you kind of can just feel the energy coming out, oozing out of guys, like super bought in, super ready to roll. So I think that kind of environment, just being in an environment of this culture is just natural now, I think is just really what's going to take us to the next level.
And Jake, from your perspective here, you're a quarterback at an institution that has been known for the quality of their quarterbacks, right? Let's start with your coach. And you could just start to throw off names and statistics. And, it was a place, if you could throw the ball, if you could run a team, Brown was always on your list, whether you ended up there or not, it was always in consideration. So give me your sense of becoming one in that line of illustrious quarterbacks and team leaders here.
First off, I'm so grateful to play under Coach Perry, who was obviously one of the greatest quarterbacks the Ivy League scene, and then learn under guys like Mac McGovern and EJ Perry. They really paved the way for me. And like Wes said, we did a good job of my class and the class below me really creating a culture that everyone's bought into, and we have 120 guys that are down to ride for each other, and I'm really excited about the opportunity, and it should be a great year.
Talk a bit about this offense, and let's compare it to last season. How do you see now? Haven't started practice yet, but you have a spring that you had between last year and now, and you have a sense of guys who are coming back and guys getting bigger, better, faster, stronger, smarter. Not to say that Brown kids are not smart to start with. So we're talking about evolution, intelligence. All right. So coming into this season, how do you see this offense being better than last year's offense?
I think that starts in the winter with winter workouts, and then leading into spring ball, and then having a great summer, which I think we did have. We had a great amount of kids here, and like I said, everyone was really bought in. And I think my responsibility this year is to get the ball in the playmakers' hands, and we have a good amount of them, and it's a responsibility that I'm excited about, and I'm ready to take on. I think that's how we'll be better this year, is continuing to do what we do and staying bought in.
Can you point to certain strengths of an offense? Like quarterbacks, I'm sure like to say we're good at all elements, but most teams might be a little bit stronger one area than others. What would you point to as the strengths of this offense?
I definitely would say receivers. We have some amazing guys in all classes at the receiver position, but I'd be wrong if I was to short the O-line as well. I think that we got guys up front that are working really hard and can't wait to attack the opportunities we have this season.
Yeah. Wes, let me ask you, usually I would ask a defensive player to do this, but I'll ask you, somebody who's been there for a while, since we're focusing on the offense here, and then I'll ask you the same question about the defense. If you were putting together a scouting report on this Brown offense coming season, what would you point to as the things that a defense is going to have to focus on if they think they can beat Brown this year?
Be ready to run. We really like to be up tempo. We're all in unbelievable shape because the coach and all the strength coaches, just that philosophy of playing fast and just being very up tempo and putting the pressure on the defense and always being aggressive, always be in offensive mode and just making sure people are on the heels. So if I were to defense, I would put the focus on trying to bring that back to us, I guess. But that's why we strap it up on Saturdays and see what happens, right?
Yeah, exactly. Jake, the same question for you, but this time doing a scouting report on the Brown defense. Right? You're across the line from them every day in some way, shape, or form. So point to what you think would be the strengths of this defense coming up.
Absolutely. I get the privilege to play against those guys every single day, and like Wes said, better be ready to run. And you better be ready to hit, because our guys are ready to go. And this spring was a huge stepping stone for them as well. The defense really molded together and began to work as one. And I think now that that's going, and the passion that they play with, I think they're going to be a very good defense this season.
Yeah. I have a question here from one of our media folks. It's Scott. I think it's Cordischi. I believe, Scott. I hope I got the name right, who wants to join us. Scott, jump in the conversation.
Thank you, Jack. Question for Coach Perry. I know the guys just talked about the defense. Coach, I thought there was significant improvement on that side of the football for your team last year. I thought they did a good job getting off the field on third down, maybe more than they had in the previous season, and also creating more turnovers maybe than they had in the year past. And I'm just wondering, are you expecting that same type of progress to continue on that side of the football? And can you talk about a guy like Isaiah Reed? Because I feel like he might be one of the best defensive players in the entire Ivy League.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Yeah, as it pertains to playing fast, I mean, we try to play fast in all three phases. So in defense, it's a little harder sometimes for people to grasp, but we want to be the most aggressive and attacking defense on the planet, right? So on offense, it's easy to see visually we are no huddle. So a lot of times that link can be made, but we want the same thing on special teams and defense. And Isaiah has really been the embodiment of it. So our defensive back, rising junior, played a ton of football for us. That's what playing fast looks like at the defensive back position. He's always looking for ways to dictate, to make plays on the ball, to attack the offense, or in practice, attack Wes. Get some good, healthy competition going there between a very strong wideout group. And as a result, we want to lead the league in turnovers, right? We want to have the most takeaways. We want to lead the league in sacks. So I think it's easy to see Jake wants to throw and more touchdowns than anybody on the planet, but we want to do the same thing on defense. We want to lead the league in turnovers. We want to lead the league in sacks. We want to lead the league in tackles. We want every player who puts on a Brown defensive jersey to think about ways that they can attack and dictate. And Scott, I appreciate you bringing Isaiah up, a rising junior who's really taken a leadership role this offseason. And to our earlier point, Jack, you need those juniors and seniors.
And Coach, if I could ask one more thing too, just I guess your comments, congratulations to EJ for signing with the Houston Texans. I know you're proud of him. And, Michael Hoyt too, who won a Super Bowl a couple of years back with the Rams, and he's going to be changing positions because of his great athleticism and versatility. Look, I know you're proud of all the guys that graduate from this program, and you love to see the great things that they go on to do and accomplish in life. But it's really neat seeing all the guys from Brown football that have played in the NFL and won Super Bowl rings over the years.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, that was exciting to see. In any frame of reference, what Jake was saying something about me as a player. I mean, I'm like light years away from any of these guys as players now. So EJ is in with the Texans. Michael's starting for the Rams. And I think, Jack, I've listened throughout the day. You've mentioned the national exposure. We're at a point in this league where if you want to be a first-team all-leaguer at your position, almost implicit in that is you're an NFL caliber player. Each and every school in this league is producing guys yearly. Those are two great examples with Michael Hoyt and EJ Perry, but there are a lot of them. And as these guys here and their other Brown football players think about what it takes in this league right now, that's the bar. So it's fun to see all those guys. I always root for Ivy guys, and especially for those two.
Yeah. It's interesting. We always start, so the first game of the season, we always start off mentioning how many Ivy guys are in active NFL camps, and it's usually in the 20s, year in, year out. And I think the number is that we're either number one or number two of all the FCS conferences in terms of guys that we, the Ivy League, have put into the league. And, I've talked with NFL folks about this, and they said, I'm sure your Ivy coaches tell guys this, but the answer is, if you can play, we'll find you. NFL coaches, we'll find you. And if you can play at a place like Brown or any of the other seven, so you're going to get great football exposure, and you're going to graduate from one of the top universities in the world. And if you're good enough, we'll find you in the NFL. How do you say no to that deal? And I'm sure that's your pitch, James, that you're using to talk.
Yeah, and these guys, when they're on campus, no one works harder, and that's the culture that we want. But when they're with us, it's Division I football, and I'm going to push them as hard as humanly possible. We're very, very lucky, and I'm proud of the kids because they handle that intensity well. They eat it up, and that's what they want. They want the best education up there. And then they want to be treated like a Division I football player down here, and we give it to them.
Yeah, that's the value of these 8 institutions, is you get all of that. You can't say that about a lot of places in this world anyway. Gentlemen, a pleasure. Coach, always good to talk with you, and Jake and Wes to talk with you guys. We'll do ESPN. We've got the Brown at Penn game, which will be an interesting one, right? We'll look forward to doing that one. And in the meantime, good luck going into the season. We will look forward to following all of you. Everybody stay healthy, stay well.
Appreciate it. Thanks for everything you do for the league too, Jack, and all
My
the exposure.
pleasure.
It's really awesome.
My
Keep it up.
pleasure. Nothing's more fun. Thank you, guys. Good
Appreciate
luck and
it,
all be well. And that wraps it then for us, for our conversations with the reps from the 8 schools. I want to thank all of you for joining us. Hopefully this was a productive session for you. I suspect it certainly was. Want you a reminder, full program available on YouTube. If you want your own copy, reach out by email to JJ Klein, who's the league's football communications contact, at jj@ivyleague.com. So we've got a great year coming up. Not just on the national broadcast on ESPN linear networks, but also on ESPN Plus. Some great schools, some great players. Should be a fun Ivy League season. So once again, thank you all for joining us. Everybody stay safe, and we'll see you down the road. Take care.